Starting right now.
I don't know what you had in mind, but here we stand on opposing sides. Let's go to war. Let's go to war. We arm ourselves with the wrongs we've done, name them off one by one. Let's go to war. Let's go to war. Everything you say, everything you do, you push it in, and you cut me down, and you cut me down.
Yep.
Screaming at the ones we love, like we forgot who we can trust.
Huh.
Screaming at the top of our lungs, on the grounds where we feel safe.
Hello, everybody.
We feel safe.
I'm like all twisted up here in my shit.
Hush, my baby, make no sound. Maybe we can wait.
NonYa's laughing at me.
It's a cold war. Let's go to war.
I was just,
Every cell looks good.
and I'm blind.
That fighting
Let me bring you up here. I'll bring you up here right after the song so it doesn't get interrupted. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, everyone. I should check the sound. I know. You might be able to hear you on speaker. You're on speakerphone. All right. You're on speakerphone. Well, you're on the phone. Hang on, I can't hear nothing. I got 3 feeds going on in my ears. Hi, Keith. I turned you down. You were sitting on the computer is what I was saying. So whatever you... Alright. Now you're froze out. There you are. Here she is. All in my hands. Look, I can turn her any way I want. Hey, Joe Info. Alright, I'm going to call you right now. Well, we're always talking. Now she's gone here. She should appear over here. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll get NonYa pulled up here shortly. There she is. Oh, I have sound.
Do you have sound?
I do.
Right?
You're good.
Oh my gosh, please tell me. Please
You're good. You're
tell
good.
me.
You're good. Make sure I charge this stuff.
Boop, boop, boop. I don't have any emojis to put in my stuff, so I'm just gonna hit send it. It won't even send. What the heck?
All right, now I can
Send.
take a break. She's on.
No, I'm not. I can't see.
I know. I just messed around. Everyone's saying hello. Joe's here. Crystal's here. I thought Duty Head was in here. One of these
There it
Tea Lights in
is.
here.
Boy, it's really going tonight. They just keep messing around. Oh well. I'll keep working. And go. There you go. There you go. I finally got it. It finally appeared. Now, is it up there? That's the real question. Did it go through? Let's see.
It looks like everything looks good. I got good audio.
There it is. Except for the emojis. It didn't give no emojis. Look.
No emojis.
Look at that. I put in emojis there, and it didn't put them in. They finally popped up. Aw. Why you gotta do that to me, dude?
What do I do now?
Dudes. No, them. They're always messing around. Look.
Gosh.
Those are supposed to go up
No,
there.
no 420 for me, Crystal.
Those two emojis right there were supposed to go with, hey, all, love, love, love. And I had put down the emojis. First, it was messing with me and took everything away, so I couldn't even send the chat. And
I'm out till Sunday.
this is what I have to deal with every single day, about every minute.
Me,
Like
this is what I have to deal with. This is what I have to deal with.
Yay! Smack.
Snap back. Me. I gotta deal with me. Oh, I gotta take this other feed out of my ear. I'm like talking to, repeating conversations now.
Oh, look. It's Thor.
Oh. It's who? Oh, Thor. Hey, Thor. Welcome. Get the cord out of the way. Welcome. Hi, Tim.
And see, like,
I that's loud.
For not. Oh, I'm sorry. For not drinking, for not smoking anything while you were on the road, girl. That is mighty high of you. Mighty high.
Not me.
And the Joe info is in the house too, I see. And I know you said it earlier, but I didn't, so I just wanted to touch base with
Can you
info.
Can you see chat yet? Yeah. So that's a yes.
Yeah.
Good.
I could see it before, and I told you that they took away my emojis, and they didn't. They didn't allow me to send. They didn't allow me to send the chat. So then it finally came up, and then I put two emojis on there, the ones that are right underneath it, the kissy one with eyes and the kiss, and
the one with the cheeks.
Yeah, they took it away from that chat that I did.
It's down there.
And I was just explaining to them that this is the stuff that we have to deal with on a minute-to-minute basis.
You should have seen the
stuff like that.
Oh, it was way.
It was way aggravated. And today was the very, very, very.
Yesterday was bad.
For defeat. Yeah, it started yesterday into today for defeat. And I don't know what kind of frequency they were using, man, but it was strong. It made you want to throw stuff, and I'm not usually that type of person. I can control myself better than what I did. I know I can. I don't need to toss. I don't need to toss anything. I just laugh. I'll do like this.
I just went cross-eyed several times.
Yeah, so do I. I still
no me, not me.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out where the sound went. I'm looking over here. I'm looking over there. Looked up here. Where did my sound go?
Well, I don't see you.
You don't see me.
Put this chat up. I need to put this chat up.
You're missing. You're missing half the show.
I went directly down to where the chat was at. I didn't pay no mind to you or your stuff over there.
Oh.
I was paying attention to the chat because that's where it's at.
That's where it's at. I agree.
If I can get it, they won't let me do it. They won't let me put them side by side.
They will.
What is up with this? Okay, I'm gonna click out.
It's bad.
Just click out. Just click out. Come back in again. Oh, there you are. You're right there on top.
Oh yeah, I'm all around.
Yeah.
NonYa girl, you are energized.
And
let's
see.
Like
There
that.
we are. There's your
What
live. Now let's try this again. No. What is going on? Why is it? Oh, now it's going out and around me.
What is this? I didn't hit that.
I'm going to get reverb. Maybe not. Do you hear that badly?
No.
Like reverbing? Okay.
Not terrible.
Maybe I haven't. Well, I shouldn't be that bad. I need to find those headphones. I got a pair. I got a small pair. Those ones want to dig in, but it's alright. I could do it for a little while.
Well,
I'm just going to be hooked up again. That's all. I won't get my freedom of the Bluetooth wire. Now they're all tangled up too.
I can't. Oh yeah. I'm just trying to figure out which one of these I can play because they're all pretty much, those things that get you copyright strikes. So.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So we dumped a bunch of crap in here today. Let me jump over here real quick.
Well, we were on a roll today, boy. We were on a roll. I tell you what.
Rolling.
That's all what we were on. We were getting messages left and right there. It led from one to the other. It was like a puzzle piece. That was fun. It was really fun. We haven't done that in a while, too. It's been about a week since we've done that.
Oh, with all these pieces started out. Everything started out, actually, it started out from the transition in the Witness in the Desert, actually, with blue eyes and a dream.
Yeah.
And a bus and some spiders.
No.
Well, you tell it better. You tell it better.
It started with dreams that we were having, and then we discovered that other people were having dreams like it, and we started putting pieces together like I didn't know what a certain area looked like, and somebody else did, and and then it led over to this YouTube video that you found with this girl who was talking about global witness, and you found that interesting. So we went in there to look at global witness, and it turned out to be part of the dream that we were having with the spiders that I was seeing, that I was combating, and it was just freakish because there was this. It led somewhere. Let's put it that way. It led somewhere big and huge, and I don't really want to give away anything because I don't know for sure, and
right.
I'd rather get more confirmation out of it and look at it better so I can present it better. I already started presenting it, but you still got to fine tune it and look into it more. Kind of like I felt awkward about putting anything about Derek Rose and Global Witness up there on Discord. I felt kind of awkward about it because you don't know for sure. You thought these things before, but then now all of these pieces are starting to come together.
They're
And
making
you're like, wait a minute.
sense. They're making sense.
Maybe I was right. Maybe I was right.
Because you want to second guess. Yeah, you always second guess the gut a little bit. You're like, well, maybe I'm just being a little imaginational. I do look at a lot of fairy tales. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, exactly. I do too. I'm in kindergarten now.
So you start thinking, oh, maybe I'm just putting, got my conspiracy hat on all the time, and you're always trying to connect things.
Yeah, it just seems to me that they've been doing this the entire time, and the cultural history is that psyop thing, and that's exactly what I was thinking whenever I thought about everything. Is this psyop, of this same circle over and over again, and it always leads to this fake thing. I don't know.
Yeah, things go around and round and round.
And it's just there all the time and constant, and it's like it almost just makes sense that this is happening right now. It's something else to look at besides what they're really doing.
Oh, come on.
I'm not sure what that. I'm not sure what that really is doing. It could be higher ups doing something else way the hell over there. But hey, look at over here, Derek Rose and this side of things. Maybe Derek Rose don't even know about it. I don't know.
Well, no. I see the people involved.
There's all kinds of aspects. There's just all kinds of aspects.
And the money, the people, the PayPal accounts, the GoFundMes, the RVs, the properties, YouTubers don't make any money. They don't make any money, and Airbnbs aren't cheap. And there's a lot of things.
We're doing it again.
We're doing it again. We're doing it. Never mind.
Alchemy.
Alchemy. Oh, let's see. I was just thinking the turd. Yeah. And Thor says, I was just thinking.
Oh, I can't even see chat because they cut off my stuff here.
Like a turd in a punch bowl. I tried to keep my concerns to myself. Don't spread negativity, right? Was it right? I need to powwow with y'all more often. Well, fantastic. Come on along. We don't.
Okay, so what do I do, Tim?
Well,
this is not set up right. YouTube. You know how they have like the screen and the chat is next to the screen, like to the right of it.
Yeah.
It's not anymore. It's not anymore.
Well,
it's not anymore. It's just like that a while ago.
Because you click the button there that says hide chat, so you need to open chat.
No, I have chat. It's underneath and it's huge.
Yeah. Like unless you hide it.
Format on me.
Let me check.
It's like they changed it. It's like they changed everything.
Let me look. I'm good at looking.
Top chat, live chat.
I'm clicking that button, by the way. This page should.
Visible? I don't know.
What's going on here?
What the heck? Zoom.
Hello, Brian. Hello.
Whenever welcome. I had to read all that stuff. There we go.
I go around.
I'm learning a lot. I am learning so much. I tell you what, I'm gonna be a
circles and circles. I'm going round. Are we good? Can you see chat?
A pot of coffee.
There we go. Fantastic.
Hey Tim, good to see you and NonYa.
You know it. Who said that?
It's good to see you, Brian.
Brian did. I haven't seen you in a while, Brian. Oh, there it is.
You just over on my channel the other day.
Your channel? Oh.
Yeah.
Your powwows. Your
You was over there having the romper room fun.
I think I missed that. I missed that one. Internet that day. That's the day I lost the internet.
Yeah, that was the romper room.
That was when.
That was the one that got ruined. It got ruined.
They shut down the whole East Coast, so we couldn't have a show.
We keep trying to show this alchemy, so get on it. Let's get on it. There's 9 people watching now. Get on it.
Well, I was in the middle of opening up a web page to show you, so I have to let that process complete.
So what?
I just updated every last stinking driver and everything in this unit the past 3 days. Everything. Every day I went through everything again. And of course, well, nothing happened. That's the thing. It's still just as slow. It should have sped up, right?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So we can shrink this down because it's not going to do anything for me.
So, what are we learning toward? Because I've been investigating for a month now, but the archons are getting easier to recognize. Well, right now we're going to learn alchemy, and that's where our focus is at, because that's where the magic is, and I love magic, because that's how you get to where you need to be, is these symbols and all these things that we do with these hand gestures, as we're meditating, and these flows that we get these dances that we have, these words that we say, these things that we do, the setups that we make for ourselves to become in this spot right now, in this way of thinking, at this particular time, in this emotion that we are. I don't know. Sorry. Went off into a rant again.
No, you're
So
absolutely
alchemy.
You're fine. Then Brian comes along and messes it all up. No, you didn't mess anything up, Brian.
Oh, Brian. Yeah, stop doing that to yourself, man. You're awesome. You are so awesome.
So this guy here talks a little slow, so I'm going to try to speed him up a little bit. But, what? Maybe what?
Emilio and Charlie. The movie with Emilio and Charlie with Kiefer Blue Diamond.
Oh, Emilio. Oh.
And they got high.
Desperados.
They were invisible in spirit world.
Desperados.
Well, you know, that's what we're looking for. I seen something about that when in our little rant and investigation there that we had, you know.
Well, they were high on they were on peyote.
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that comment. Anyway.
I feel good.
Put that in the dump file.
I feel good.
Going in the dump file. Where is that at? Where is that at? There it is.
I have to blow this up, but we're not going there right now. Look at me. I'm always getting sidetracked. I'm always getting sidetracked.
I put that in the file, Crystal. We'll get on that. We're going to get on that. Don't worry. Because what you said there, right there, about the invisible and how to detect those, we're going to find out. That's what we're sniffing out.
Yeah. Billy the Kid, yep. Desperados, they can't see us. We're in the spirit world now. And they were making fun and everything. It was a good episode. So I'd play that clip, but I don't think I can get away with it. I know I can't. So the one Crystal's talking about.
What are you doing?
I'm not playing anything.
You playing some leak project there? What are you doing? Let's go to alchemy. You know this. We made this mistake already.
I already left that like before you started talking.
Oh.
That's what I was telling you. What are you talking about? I just stopped for a second.
Well, I'm live and I just caught up. Let me refresh again to prove it.
Yeah, it was a big chicken.
Boo, 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 boo. There.
All right, so I'm at the video.
7, 8, 9, 10.
And we're starting.
$23 seconds behind you. I'm gonna get off of here. I'm gonna close out my web.
All right.
I'm still hearing voice.
I'm gonna speed them up to 1 1/4.
We'll see if I have to go out and watch.
Well, I'm still here. Shh.
Of what alchemy is all about. Because I don't need to tell probably some of you that there are few disciplines, there are few endeavors which bear more peculiar interpretations and misinterpretations than alchemy. If you look through various bookshelves, especially in such halls of contemporary infinite wisdom like the Bodhi Tree Bookshop or places like that, and you all the peculiar things that are there under the name of alchemy, I think it will be a revelation to you, but perhaps a revelation. And of course, the reason that is that just because it's mysterious and controversial, alchemy has been subject to kinds of objections of various kinds, and the real substance is often very much in a state of abeyance when you look at many of these references and much of this literature. Now, the best way I think in which we can initially approach this subject is by way of a little metaphor which a man who was not particularly concerned with alchemy as far as I know, although in a spiritual and mythological sense he was rather close to it, the late author and Oxford professor J.R.R. Tolkien, a famous essay on which, outside of his mythological work, there is I think very interesting image that we would say that, but we'll have to Tolkien now. There is and even call them there is a primary creation, which is the creation of the thing which we first soon come in this, and it's already kind of a reality to call it creation. And Tolkien said we can't do a great deal because it is sort of, and therefore if we, let's say, want to address ourselves to a verification, we want to address ourselves to an other reality, we have come up with what he called the high entry to secondary, and to the disappointment to you, the second creation is the creation of the imagination. Now in this respect I think that Professor Tolkien on the same level as the the alchemists, as magicians, and the sociologists, some of the kings, some of the greater is no freedom, who said that imagination is actually what the human felt beholder, whereby very important things are brought into view, brought into focus. And so, what all into there's something within us that if we open to a vision, a reality, is prefabricated in which ourselves. And really every age and on them, let's say from the evil chance to survive in the aqua society or the enthusiasm, right up to the chemists and to the magicians, has put to the evil, this ability was known and is known. And that the equality of the imagination was always there as the chief instrumentality in these activities. Now, in elaborating on that, we might say that what happens frequently to the human psyche, to the human consciousness, is that when it is confronted with that primary creation that Tolkien was talking about, that world of facts that exists in the outer world, that some people have called a consensus reality, then we become desirous of change in reality. But behind that there is an important situation that we discern very soon that this outer world as it is in many ways really not to our liking, and usually for good reasons. So now we are looking for change. How can it change? How does it change? How might it change? And the Greeks said pantarei, everything moves, which is another way of putting everything changes. So we see that there are certain kinds of change that are going on without our intervention. And for instance, probably the earliest way in which in history people have envisioned that change is that there is a cyclic, repetitive change. They looked at the sun, they looked at the changing relationship of the sun and the earth, they observed the changing of the seasons, and they saw a cyclically repetitive movement of change, which, although it is change, is really the kind of change that isn't going anywhere. It's merely recycling upon itself, like the legendary Ouroboros serpent that holds its own tail in its mouth. Now then, that there was a very important image of change in the world for a long, long time, and it still exists in certain cultures to some degree. It was then supplemented and ultimately replaced by another kind of change, and that is what people have envisioned as the change in linear historical time. And that is to a large extent what we are involved in still in our culture. We see time not as circling back upon itself as much as proceeding in a straight line. And when we have that view, then we also envision that no day, no year, no moment along that line is the same as another. So there is a uniqueness to every event. Yet there is still one great problem with this notion, and that problem is that while we can envision that kind of change to go on, we don't have the slightest idea where it is going. That is why we have apocalypticism, envisioning of the end not only of ourselves, which would be a reasonable assumption, considering that all living things die, but of the world, quote, and of time itself. As if a big guillotine is to descend, and they will cut that time track, and that's it. And in practically every historical period and every culture, people had a tendency to move in an apocalyptic direction. Now then there is, however, yet another, beginning kind of with the 18th century, latter part of the 18th century, another notion arose that has to do with change, and that was evolutionary change. And this, of course, came out of the scientific discipline of biology, of dear old Charles Darwin, and it certainly has furnished religious folk, especially of the kind of fundamentalist variety, with a wonderful field of argumentation, so that even today we can hear on the radio and the television this fulminating against what these folk are often pleased to pronounce as evolution. Evolution. So now we looked at all of these varieties of change, but in addition to, and envisioned ultimately in a certain sense as really in lieu of these changes, there's yet another. This one was sort of a secret. It was not something that people openly talked about a great deal. It was such a big secret that it was even a secret to themselves, usually, you know. That's the real secret. But nevertheless, this was the secret way of change. And what is the secret way of change? Transformation. Transformative change. None of the others that I mentioned before qualifies in that respect. And this is a very, very strange kind of change which ordinarily we have very little knowledge of, and it's hard for us to relate to it on the surface, because we don't have many examples of it at all around us that we can look at and use as a metaphor. In fact, there are very, very few examples. One that I can think of is sort of an example, is what happens to the caterpillar after it spins itself into a cocoon and then changes into a winged creature, a butterfly or something of that sort. Because that is a rather different change from others. What we find there is that the creature encloses itself in a vessel, it builds a vessel for itself, and then becomes not an other creature right away, but rather reduces itself to a kind of a black goo. A formless blob of substance. And then this formless blob of substance slowly reconstitutes itself, and eventually out comes the winged butterfly, which doesn't look at all like anything that was there before. It has been, as we say, transformed. All right. Now, this transformative change is the kind of change that alchemy endorses. In fact, it is the essence of alchemy. And even with all the alchemical literature that came forth over a long period of time, and some of the very fine contemporary or nearly contemporary interpretations of alchemy, such as the one that Carl Jung brought forth, and we'll speak about that in greater detail later on, it is still very mysterious as to where and how this transformative change can be applied, and how does it work. So in the background of the alchemical thinking, there is an insight, that's probably the best way of putting it, an insight that declares that reality, and within that reality we ourselves, can undergo a substantive transformative change which will make reality and ourselves within that reality into something that is not present at all. It won't be just a process of growth, like a seed that falls into the ground and then out of it grows the particular plant, the seed of which it was, like an acorn that contains in potentia the oak tree and will grow into an oak tree with all the circumstances. Not that sort of thing at all, but a change that will produce something entirely different from what it is now. And moreover, that this kind of a change is an ultimately very desirable thing, and that it is really the kind of change that will produce a transcendental, unearthly, timeless, miraculous result, which sometimes has been called the stone of the philosophers, sometimes called the elixir of life, sometimes both, sometimes nothing, but which is nevertheless envisioned as being thus present. We will see in greater detail when we speak, for instance, of Zosimos, as to how this imaginal process of transformation relates to, for instance, the Gnostic world image. Because it is rather easy to see that if the desired end of life, as envisioned by the Gnostic, by the Hermeticist, let's say by the Neoplatonist, or for heaven's sake, for any real sorrow-going mystic anywhere, any time, is to come to pass, then certainly the human at the psycho-spiritual level has to change radically into something that it is not now. And when it does changes, then it will be in touch with something far greater than itself. That as long as we stay as we are, and you can attach various epithets to that. If you are psychologically inclined, you can say, well, as long as we stay unconscious, if you have a little more down-to-earth terminology and you say, as long as we stay the same stupid clods that we are, and there are yet other expressions that you can use, we are not going to know. We are not going to know that which is truly worth knowing. And that which is truly worth knowing is, first of all, the deepest essence within ourselves, and secondly, a greater, that Tolkienian imaginal reality of which our deepest self is a part even now, and from whence assuredly it emerged into the twilight zone of the external world where we are now. So this is, let's say, in that sense, in terms of a greater teleological, as the technical term has it, which just means ultimate, I love to throw these things around because, after all, at one time I learned Greek, and these words are the only things that I still remember, So, but let's say this relates to the ultimate teleological destiny of the human, which, of course, by way of a kind of eternal loop, is connected to the remote transcendental origins of the human. And if we want to really get in touch with these, then there has to be a transformative change within us. Now, jumping a little bit now to the more objective level, nobody really knows where and how alchemy started. Nobody really knows. The Arabs wrote some beautiful treatises, including alchemical ones and all of that, and who, as you know, soon after the passing of their prophet, spread out in conquering fashion all over the Middle East, and then eventually into Spain and so forth. The Arabs were of the view that alchemy started in Egypt, for which reason they called it al-chem, which is sort of the Egyptian thing. Chem being that ancient name of Egypt, which in the old Egyptian language, out of which Coptic developed and so forth, means black, the black land, the black country, primarily because of the black mud that floods the fertile part of Egypt, and did at that time, as the result of the inundations of the river Nile. It was called the black country, Chem, and al is the prefix, so the Egyptian thing, the Egyptian science. But at the same time, we also notice, and certainly the researchers have noticed, that allowing for certain differences, the differences really being more along the line of language and linguistic symbolism, we find alchemy in places that are very far from Egypt. They're not very likely to have gone to there from Egypt, such as in China, where there is an alchemical tradition which has, let's say, also essential and substantial transformation as its objective, but which, instead of using the symbolism of physical and chemical substances like salt, sulfur, mercury, and antimony, and all those sorts of things that we have in Western alchemy, it uses the symbolism of the human body. But it aims at the same thing. You want a real sort of thumbnail, good exposition of it, then look up the book called The Secret of the Golden Flower by Richard Wilhelm and Carl Jung, and you will find it there. It will give you a real good idea what Chinese alchemy is all about. Then you come to India, and you also have alchemy. The Indian alchemy, a little more concerned with physical substances, being a little bit more similar to the Western or perhaps originally Egyptian alchemy. I just know that there's one little story out of Indian alchemy that always sticks in my mind because it illustrates a good principle that, and this I've heard from people who lived in India for a long time. good while ago, not very recently, but still. And they said that, even in the 1920s and 1930s, there were rural alchemists wandering around in India, going from village to village and promising the villagers that they would make gold or something else that they liked. I think they like gold best. It's a fairly common predilection. And it's out of these village alchemists that come the story that the alchemist came and said, all right, people, if you pay me so much and everything, I'll show you how to do this. And so they came and they listened to him, and he gave them a whole procedure, all the ingredients and how to light the fire and what to do. And then he got up and said, all right, you got it all now. And he started to walk away and said, oh, I forgot something. And he came around and says, no, it's very important that when you do this, that nobody thinks about monkeys. Nobody. And with that he went off. Now, of course, by trying not to think of monkeys, everybody thought of monkeys, and this gave a very good explanation as to why the alchemical operation never succeeded. Never succeeded at all. Well, that much about Indian alchemy. Just that one funny. But there are alchemical kinds of preoccupations and activities in many, many places. Mircea Eliade, the great religious and mythological scholar of the 20th century, probably the greatest, said that alchemy started with the blacksmiths. And now, of course, I don't think that too many of us have at the present time much of an opportunity to observe blacksmiths. But coming from a much less mechanized country, in my childhood, in our village where I lived in Hungary, we definitely had a blacksmith shop. And I can see what Mircea Eliade is talking about, because it was the most mysterious and kind of occult place in the whole town. First of all, you came close to it and everything was, as you might expect, black. What should it be in a blacksmith, But sort of, sooty black little house, and when you went in, there was a sooty black man in there who was the blacksmith, and a roaring fire with really mysterious sort of red and orange flames shooting up, and big bellows, which usually the blacksmith's unfortunate small children were chosen to work, the bellows blowing on these fires, and the fires roaring, and of course pieces of metal being inserted into that fire and changing into red hot, molten, soft metal. So you, as you will see in a few minutes, you're just going to see, the black phase, then the changes of the color of the metal in the fire, ultimately orange and red. Here is the red phase. Maybe the white phase has sort of gotten lost somewhere in between, but who worries about that?
Can you hear me?
But then, of course, in order to re-solidify it again, to kind of bring this whole mysterious wild process back to Earth, then, of course, the red-hot metal would be stuck into large containers of water.
Trying to see if it
and then
breaks
the water boils and throws up steam into the air, and then you have the metal. Also, when the metal can be shaped to various purposes, usually for horseshoes and things of that sort. So I can see the mystery, and the similarity. Now, in any event, now we need to kind of come down to, I don't know whether the blacksmiths had any brass tacks, but something of that sort. We have to come down to Western alchemy, but the reason I am not just engaging sort of in the storytelling art, which is a fine art and which I like a great deal, but I was trying to impress upon the image that what we are dealing with here is something that appeals to the imagination, that creates amazement, makes you truly wonder about something. Change, transformation. Old piece of iron all of a sudden becomes orange and red colored and throws out sparks, and you can make something out of it, and you can cool it off again, and then it becomes useful at the earthly level. All of these things are important. Now, of course, if you are one of these people who is only interested in facts, like, I don't know, old Dragnet of many years ago, just a facts man, well, then you will not sympathize with what I'm trying to do. But I'm trying to indicate to you that we are dealing with something here that is an opener of the imagination, that is a way of entering the secondary creation that Tolkien spoke about in that particular essay. Now, so we don't really know where alchemy came from. I think we probably would be fairly safe in saying that alchemy came from the human soul. Wherever the human soul happened to be, eventually it came around to an alchemical or alchemical-like way of trying to accomplish transformation. Right? Now, by the time that we encounter alchemy, which is sort of primarily in the Middle Ages, of course it was around before, but not publicized a great deal, and at the time of the Renaissance, when the Hermetic arts had such a great flowering, largely as the result of the discovery of the Hermetic books, which were translated at that time. That's Renaissance period, magic, ceremonial magic, alchemy, and much of our alchemical literature, our alchemical imagery is from that period and then from then onward. Interestingly enough, alchemy persists, not perhaps exactly in the same way, or perhaps not having the same kind of public appeal and respectability, but it persists so that in the very midst of the Enlightenment, which of course was supposed to be really the birth of rationalism, the getting away from all kinds of superstition, and all that sort of thing, some of the greatest figures of the Enlightenment were, on the sly, or sometimes not so much on the sly, alchemists. Voltaire not only knew about alchemy, but he knew how to practice it. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the great German poet, the prince of poets and poet of princes, one of the chief figures really of the Enlightenment, the practicing alchemist, never made any secret out of it, had an alchemical laboratory, and many, many others. So clear into the age of reason, clear into the era of the Enlightenment. Benjamin Franklin knew about alchemy. Well, of course, he was a man of very, very wide interests, and he may have even had some alchemical operations, because after all he did everything, he conjured the lightning and so on and so forth. So it was a long period that alchemy was there in the culture and was highly regarded. It was often referred to as the great art, often referred to as the natural philosophy, whereby it was meant the philosophers of nature, which, to explain further, is, let's say, the kind of wisdom that arises out of the observation of the transformation process by way of the elements of nature. That's what they meant by philosophers of nature. Not people who went out into nature, hiked around in the hills and then philosophized about it. No, that wasn't the story at all. So it was a very important discipline that lasted for a very long time, had very high regard. Now, okay, after we know all of that, why did it come to an end? Well, why does anything come to an end? But it really came to an end when rationalism in the culture had reached a point where it wouldn't really recognize anything as real if it were not totally tangible and factual. And that is when alchemy then yielded up its gift to the future generations by way of its successor, chemistry. In fact, a lot of the discoveries of chemistry, of pharmacology, for instance, had alchemical origins. When we come to the great, really towering figure of Paracelsus later on in our discussion, we will see that Paracelsus applied the principles of alchemy to a whole lot of different disciplines, and thereby had developed an alchemical system of medicine and invented and discovered quite a few very effective forms of medication. I'm proud to say that back in my country, again, when I was a youngster, the largest pharmaceutical company was called the Paracelsus Works in Hungary. They named it after Paracelsus. Somehow those old Hungarians knew something, Now, in any event, using now the terminology of Western alchemy, I'll sort of try to follow step by step the main steps of the process. And as we go on in our talks with the various great alchemists, when we see their contributions, then we will be able to look at more detail. But the alchemist says, look at the world. It is like a square. That's an abstract symbol. And why is that? Because for thousands of years people believed that the physical world was made up of earth, water, fire, and air. So this tetramorph, fourfold form, which can be symbolized as a square, in the symbolism of the diagram of alchemy, stands as a square. Now, what is important about this square is that it is solid, it is here. It undergoes maybe some historical or cyclic changes, as we mentioned before, but it remains here. But it does not transform. It does not transform. The external world does not transform. Or the physical, the heletic world does not transform. Or, you want to make it a little more personal, the earthly human, the physical human, does not transform. It sickens and dies. That's about what it does, So, what needs to be done? This solid square, and we even call, of course, that has other origins, Masonic symbolism or so forth, but we call a kind of a rigid individual who doesn't transform and doesn't change, and a square, it's a square. So there is this square. So the very first thing that has to happen, the square has got to go. Something has to be brought to bear on that physical situation that will break it up. And then the process can begin. You can apply these alchemical principles to many different things. Many different things. You can, and I'm certainly not going to go through them all. Carl Jung applied it primarily to psychology, and I think he's done a very, very good job, and in so doing he has also really rehabilitated alchemy and brought it back into public view of intelligent people where it really wasn't anymore. But in all kinds of other areas, if we want not just ordinary change, if we want extraordinary change, then the square has to be broken up. When it breaks up, well, then it does somewhat what the caterpillar does in the cocoon. It turns into a formless mass. Formless mass. This was called by the alchemists in Latin prima materia, the prime matter, because they postulated that such a formless mass was there at the beginning before the very, very good job, and in so doing he has also really rehabilitated alchemy and brought it back into public view of intelligent people where it really wasn't anymore, but in all kinds of other areas. If we want not just ordinary change, if we want extraordinary change, then the square has to be broken up. When it breaks up, well, then it does somewhat what the caterpillar does in the cocoon. It turns into a formless mass. Formless mass. This was called by the alchemists in Latin prima materia, the prime matter, because they postulated that such a formless mass was there at the beginning before the formation of the material universe. So the people have interesting ideas. I mean, Kabbalists have the idea, I don't know how much earlier, but maybe 1,000 years before the astronomers, that there were the first swirlings, the nebulae, out of which came the other celestial bodies. How did they know that? They didn't have any telescope. They didn't have any observatory up on the hill. Well, they had telescopes inside. They had powers of perception which disclosed some of these to them. And similarly, the alchemists had the idea that that is philosophically, mythologically, mystically the way things happen, that before there is form, there is a formless mass. And out of this formless mass, then eventually form develops. Form congeals. But now when we want to undo form, then we have to get back to that formless mass, because that is the creative matrix. The other is a finished product, is not creative. Only the unfinished is creative. That's why some people have said in the past that the human is an unfinished being. And it is this unfinished quality within us that allows for creativity to function within us. If everything were finished and cut and dried in us, there would be no creativity. But that's a little different subject, again, that has to do more with the psychology of creativity. So now, well, let me tell you, there is an alchemical saying that is in the old alchemical literature, and interestingly enough, this brings the human into the operation. He says, from a man and a woman, or from the, you might say, from the world, draw a square. From the square, draw a circle. From the circle, draw a triangle. And then draw a circle again. So now you got it all. There it is. We can finish. We can have coffee. No. I don't think you would like that. So the circle which follows upon the square is the prima materia. It is a kind of primitive wholeness, out of which anything can come. This is a little bit like the Chinese Taoist concept of the uncarved block. You know, they have the uncarved block, your uncarved lump of stone or whatever. If there is a lump of stone, I don't know what you would call it anyway, a lumpy stone or a big piece of wood. It's really kind of, it doesn't have any discernible form as form goes, but in it is the potential of all kinds of forms, right? When the sculptor comes to that stone, it can cut out of it a child, it can cut out a dog, it can cut out a horse, there you go, all kinds of things. And so that's what this is like. It's a condition wherein the potentiality and the possibility of countless things is present. It's real creativity. And it's also, in addition to being called the prima materia, this is also called the dark or the black phase of alchemy. Nigredo, the black phase. And why is it black? Well, because black is the most creative color. If you are in a room and extinguish all the lights, everything, no light is coming, really, really black. It is kind of like you have after a blackout, You know what? If you have any imagination at all, you can see all kinds of things in that room. All kinds of things in that room. In fact, maybe you'll see too many strange things in that room. And why is that? Because the black is neutral. But as soon as the light gets into the situation, then you see something else. I had a friend at one time, very nice German guy, in fact, and he used to tell me that his mother back home in Bavaria always moved the furniture around. And so he would come home real late at night, usually after having imbibed goodly quantities of Bavarian beer or schnapps or whatever there was available, wanted to sneak into the house and sneak to his room, so mother wouldn't see him. But of course, meanwhile, his mother had rearranged the rooms completely so that he constantly bumped into everything. So you see, this is the creative trouble in the dark. In any event, the black phase, the nigredo, the dark, is that creative situation now out of which the process then develops. So the conclusion to be drawn from this is that in order to really start a creative process, things have to be reduced to that dark creative matrix. I leave it up to you to apply this in various ways. But let's say you really want to have some big creative idea about whatever, about life, about God, about the universe. It might be a good idea to first get away from the ideas that you already have. It doesn't mean that the ideas that you already have are necessarily false, but by the very virtue of the fact that they are there as fairly rigid structures to which you hang on, nothing new is going to happen. Nothing new is going to happen. This is, of course, a very Gnostic idea because it says that belief is just belief. Belief is not knowing. Knowing comes when you put the belief aside. It says, okay, I'm not going to worry about this now. And then something new can enter the picture. So all of these things, but we've got to go on. Now, what is next? Out of that dark, and within that dark situation now, light begins to dawn a little bit, and two figures emerge, two potentialities, two powers. In fact, they sometimes are called the two powers. And they have all kinds of representations in alchemical symbolism because alchemy is a symbol system. Very frequent symbol is that they are two beings, one masculine, one feminine, and they are often referred to as the king and the queen. And the king and the queen now emerge out of the dark and confront each other. And then slowly, very slowly, the process begins. Oh, I almost forgot. No, not the monkeys. Not to think about monkeys, but what really helps to make all this happen? Fire. So these things happen in a vessel, the alchemical retort, and in that retort the process takes place, changes. Underneath is a fire. This is referred to as the slow, steady flame of the alchemist. And if you take all the rules that you find in the alchemical books, literally, you give up before you start, because they really seem so difficult. It's like the fire has to be kept exactly at the same level, not hotter and not cooler, in a very, very completely steady fashion, and never is allowed to go out, is never allowed to die down, it's never allowed to do this, it's never allowed to do that. And once again, you begin to sort of wonder whether all of this is really not far more symbolic than we think. But of course the physical is there. But the physical, at least so I feel, is primarily a symbol. Now, let me just sort of indicate what do you think is the steady flame, that steady, unchanging flame? Well, I would say certainly for one thing, it's the ongoing, relentless determination of the alchemist himself. That he is not going to give up, that he is not going to get 1 minute terribly excited and then down in the dumps, that he is not going to allow his consciousness to fluctuate, that he will be there alert and ready and working with these things all until the process is completed. How many of us can do that? But I think we should, because there is there is alchemy going on inside of us right now, and if we are not steady about it, you know what? Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. We're going to die the same untransformed dumbbells that we have been throughout a good deal of our lives. That's about it. Which is probably as good a reason for reincarnation as any. But if you go out smart out of this world, I would say the reason to reincarnate may significantly diminish. Now then, and now these two figures, which have a mineralogical or chemical name, salt and sulfur. Salt is the feminine, sulfur is the masculine. Why that is so, well, I can't exactly tell you, but there are symbolic connections. Sulfur is yellow. Yellow is the color of the sun. So the alchemist said sulfur is a kind of primitive, stinking proto-gold, fool's gold. Sulfur doesn't smell very good, if that has bypassed you. And then the salt, which retains water, it swells up, and things like that, which will happen if you don't keep your salt free of water in your kitchen and things like that. That one is feminine, because the salt can become pregnant. Becomes pregnant with water and various things. So they are the salt and the sulfur. They are the king and the queen. And there are other symbolic figures that can be introduced also. Now they begin to interact with each other, because the result of their interaction is the envisioned goal of alchemy, the ultimate wholeness, the stone of the philosophers. But it's a long process in that direction. In fact, a little bit more about that. However, once again, lest I forget, there is also a third. The third is not so easy to see as these two. But the third is there as the facilitating and accomplishing agent of the conjunction. So the alchemist says just the sulfur and the salt left to their own devices, are never going to produce the ultimate alchemy. They'll just interact, they'll just fight, they'll just dance, they'll just argue like so many married couples, But it isn't going anywhere, just like so many marriages. But, I got to get off that kick. But a third has to come in, and that third is Mercury. Now, once again, Mercury is the spirit of Mercury, is once again the chemical substance of Mercury, the same one that maybe they still do, I don't know, that they used to put in thermometers and everything else. And it's a very mysterious thing. I think that I was probably a reincarnated alchemist, because as a little kid I used to take the thermometers in the house and break them and then play with the mercury, and was that ever a lot of fun. Of course it's poisonous, but I didn't eat it. I had a good Hungarian kid has better things to eat, maybe if you put a lot of paprika on the mercury, I don't know, but anyway, you see, and one of the things that you see about it right away when you play with that mercury is that it looks like a perfect combination of a liquid and a solid. It runs, but then it divides into little solid globules which recombine again. It's a real magical substance. And so it is, let's say, the symbolic representative of what the alchemists call the medium of the conjunction. This is what causes the conjunction to happen. Now, it's named Mercury for a number, there's a lot of astrological symbolism goes into alchemy also. Why? Because astrology was a terribly important thing at that time, Everybody knew about the planets. Everybody knew about the signs of the zodiac. You didn't have to look them up in the Los Angeles Times, in the astrological column, because it was a very, very common way to understand the heavens and understand the influence and the relationship of the heavens to humans. Very, very common. But Mercury, the planet Mercury, of course, is named after the god, the Roman god Mercurius, who in turn is the Roman form of Hermes, who in turn is related to the Egyptian Thoth. I will stop at that point. But all of these deific figures have one thing in common, is that they have the capacity to bring together, to unite. Therefore, Mercury is the medium of the conjunction. This is often envisioned now as a triangle. So the two now becomes a triangle. There is the salt and the sulfur, or if you want to call them the queen and the king, and then above them, as an upward pointing triangle, like a fire triangle, there is Mercurius, the Mercury. And this Mercury influences them, aids them, so that they can reunite once again, so that the union can be accomplished. But it's a long, drawn-out process. On other occasion, I think we did an alchemical series of talks on the Rosarium Philosophorum, the Rosary of the Philosophers, which consists of 10 images, and which Carl Jung utilized in one of his books. And these are sort of the 10 sub-phases in addition to the 3 great ones. So first, in the Nigredo, in the black phase, which we mentioned, in the initial part of the interaction, we have yet a whole bunch of sub-phases, and I'll mention the Latin names and then translate them quickly. First, solutio, solution. That is when the solids are dissolved, when the square is broken up. Elementarum separatio is the second one, the separation of the elements, which ultimately leads to the separation of the two main protagonists, antagonists there, the king and the queen. Then they are beginning to try to have fun, let us say, as men and women often will do if nobody prevents them, and that is conjunctio. They are beginning to join together, they embrace. However, that embrace eventually really leads to a fusion between the two. They have really united. I mean, much more so than any sexual act unites anybody. But you know what? It didn't really work all that well, seemingly, because this newly fused unity of the two is dead. Is dead. Mortificatio, death. Following up on mortificatio, as it often is with human bodies, putrefactio, putrefaction. So it begins to dissolve. Oh well. Now the good alchemist, of course, knows that these are phases of the process, and that the process has to go through these. There is no need to get excited. There is no need to get depressed. There is definitely no need to abandon the project, but keep on with the fire, and it will work. And so now, at this point of the putrefaction and coagulation, these are all the ones that are mentioned, are all phases of the nigredo. They are all within the first grade division. But now things begin to change. Something ascends from the dying and putrefying body. Something ascends, the ascent of the soul. This is referred to as sublimatio, becoming more sublime. The soul rises up. And with that we have entered now what is called the white phase or albedo, which really means that the darkness in the retort is now receding, more and more light is coming in, and the black is changing into sort of gray and white. So the light is coming. And upon this rising there follows a washing, ablutio, of the seeming dead corpse. After that washing has occurred, boom, life, soul comes back into it, animatio. And with that, then the white phase is completed. And what happens after that? Now the last step is ready to be taken. After the black phase, after the white phase, now a big light, sort of like the orange and red light of the molten metal in the blacksmith shop, the red phase. Sometimes in some very early alchemical treatises there is a yellow phase, citrinitas as well, which is between the white and the red, but it's really a sort of early phase of the red. And in that red phase, in sort of the red heat of the alchemical union, the true and abiding union of the two opposites occurs now, and the result of that is a miracle. The philosopher's stone, the elixir of life, the alchemical process thus has come to its conclusion. So those are the phases, those are the process. Black phase, white phase, red phase. And usually the three are the ones that are mentioned. Now, you're probably beginning to wonder by now as to, well, okay, so when in the heck did they start producing their gold? You know, because this is what is in everybody's mind, that alchemy is about the making of gold. And of course that's not entirely untrue, because the alchemical symbolism states that when the final result of the alchemical process of transformation has been achieved, when the stone of the philosophers is there, this mysterious object, it's not always represented as a stone. In the rosary of the philosophers it is represented as an androgynous, miraculous being, the great empress as she is called, because the empress is higher than the king and the queen in the medieval order. So there are various symbols for it. But, well, let's say the object of the activity, when that comes to pass, this is such a miraculous result that with it and with its presence anything is possible. Okay? And if anything is possible, well, then base metals like lead and things like that can be changed into gold. And that's part of the alchemical story. So the alchemists, who were for the most part pretty smart people, and who had a somewhat similar attitude to, let's say, modern academics in our universities, they would go up to a king or a queen or a prince or a duke or a bishop or a pope, and they would say, if you subsidize us, if you build an alchemical laboratory for us, and the retort and everything, or you finance all of that, and you'll keep us in money until we can really do this, and we can't promise you how soon that will be. If you do all that for us, when we finally get it done, we will be able to change lead and iron and things like that into gold for you. But you have to subsidize us first. So this is kind of like nowadays a government grant. You go to the government and say, look, if you give us money, eventually we'll produce something that you can use. And the government usually says no, because our governments or any governments are in the business of taking money from people, not giving it to them. And so to reverse that process is very, very difficult. In any event, there is the issue of making gold. There are stories, there are reports and legends that some alchemists did produce gold, and that then they gave it to their patrons. It's difficult to tell. Also difficult to tell what fraud might be involved, all kinds of things. Some people claim that with certain modern processes even, that gold can be made, but that it's so much trouble, takes so long, and so little gold is produced that it's really not worth it, So you might as well, hold up the jeweler store and avail yourself of your gold needs in that fashion. But obviously we are dealing here with a symbol system. Obviously we are dealing with a symbol system. And the symbol system declares that once that transformation has really occurred, really proceeded, then the transformed person, being, whatever you want to call it, becomes a miraculous creature. And there is no telling what it will do. There are all kinds of magical powers that are outlined in some of the alchemical books about what the Philosopher's Stone does. It heals the sick. It makes the sad happy. It, does everything under the sun. It's a miraculous object. But I think the symbolism indicates that when the transformation is complete, then really the sky is the limit, in a sense, as to what you can do. And that not just physical things, but otherwise, because you have become now you have become an all-powerful being. You say, arrogance, inflation, and all of that. But you know what? What are the qualities usually attributed to God? All-powerful, right? Omnipotent. Deus Pater Omnipotens, in Latin, right? Now, if you have become divine, if you have become one with the universal deity, then that means that you also are all-powerful now. Not as an ego, not as that's a total misapplication of the situation. If I pray right, I decree right, things like that, then I'll be able to heal, I'll be able to make a lot of money, all of that. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but this is certainly not about that. But it means that if you have really transformed, then perhaps experiences, situations, ideas that previously have been very common, very dull, very uninteresting. What could be more dull than a piece of lead? Just kind of look at it. I mean, it's heavy, it's lumpy, it's gray. There's nothing very nice about it. But if you can transform the lead all of a sudden into shining gold, so maybe then the transformed soul can apply this miraculous principle to all kinds of life experiences. And things that previously seemed very, very dull and very, very bad, all of a sudden are wonderful. Life becomes wonderful. Life becomes a miracle. Wherever you look, there is shining gold and no longer the old things. What has changed? You have changed. The philosopher's stone has changed in you. This is, of course, the personal application. Now, a lot of other things could be said, because the alchemical principle has been applied in various ways. And I just want to indicate at this point, because we are coming toward the end of our time, that the important thing really to all the great alchemists, and I can see, and we will talk about them, was the principle of alchemy. They felt that there was a principle here, there was a process described here that is extremely, extremely important and tremendously valuable. Not a gold. That's a flapdoodle. That's a byproduct. It's just like we have all kinds of spin-off from the space shot, going to the moon or things like that. It's nice to have the spin-offs, but the important thing was getting there to the moon, getting to the moon for heaven's sakes, and that's the way they looked at this, that there is a principle here of substantial change which has tremendous implications. So with all my great respect for Carl Jung and for instance, the psychological application of the alchemical principle, which I think is very, very fine and very, very important, we need to keep in mind that the old alchemists saw, in addition to the transformation of the individual alchemist himself, which they saw. One of the very famous alchemists, I think it was Michael Meyer, or another one who said, "Be ye therefore living philosopher's stones," indicating that the alchemist himself has to change and has become the great transformer. But there are other aspects of it. For instance, the word is never mentioned, but it's, I think, very, very plain, for instance, to someone who reads the Manichaean scriptures, beautiful poetic things, the writings of the great Gnostic faith of the prophet Mani in Persia, that Mani looked upon the entire world, the entire earth upon which we live, as a substance which should be subjected to an alchemical process. And that the Manichaean perfecti, the Manichaean wise men, the ones in the white robes, would, by way of their meditations and by way of their prayers and their rituals, extract the light from the world. Bring it out, the sparks of light that are lost there. It's very much like a Kabbalistic concept, of course, of the sparks that are held by the clifford. And bring these out by way of an alchemical process, and then they could go on the ships of light above. So that really this world is an alchemical retort. That's how I look upon a lot of Mani's teachings, for instance. And the wise, the knowers, have to be the alchemists who work with this retort, bring the light out of it. We will see later on St. Thomas Aquinas, really very different kind of a man than the prophet Mani, in his Aurora Consurgens, is bringing out the captured wisdom, Sophia, who is captured by the earth in matter, and that the work of the alchemist is to liberate this mysterious, glorious being from the shackles of material confinement, so that she could rise to the heavens once again. So you can see that the application of the alchemical principle within various mythic contexts, a Christian Sophianic concept in the case of Aquinas, a sort of quasi-Kabbalistic concept in the case of Mani, and all along the transformation of the alchemist himself, because it's quite evident that if you look at all the alchemical scriptures, that if the alchemist himself does not transform, then obviously he doesn't have the power to transform or change anything else. So it's a very, very important issue. And so we have here a very mysterious, very, very ancient way, sort of the secret path of change, which was a secret because people's consciousness was not able to deal with it, and that's the only reason why things are secret. Real secrets are not secret because you know what? What are the qualities usually attributed to God? All powerful. Related to the Egyptian Thoth, I will stop at that point. But all of these, paprika on the mercury, I don't know, but anyway, you see, and one of the things that you see about it right away when you play with that mercury is that it looks like a perfect combination of a liquid and a solid. That direction. In fact, a little bit more about that. However, once again, lest I forget, there is also a third. The third is not so easy to see as these two, but the third is there as the facilitating and accomplishing agent of the conjunction. So the alchemist says, just the sulfur and the salt, left to their own devices, are never going to produce the ultimate alchemy. They'll just interact, they'll just fight, they'll just dance, they'll just argue like so many married couples, But it isn't going anywhere, just like so many marriages. But, I got to get off that kick. But a third has to come in, and that third is Mercury. Now, once again, Mercury is the spirit of Mercury, is once again, the chemical substance of Mercury, the same one that maybe they still do, I don't know, that they used to put in thermometers and everything else. And it's a very mysterious thing. I think that I was probably a reincarnated alchemist, because as a little kid I used to take the thermometers in the house and break them and then play with the mercury, and was that ever a lot of fun. Of course it's poisonous, but I didn't eat it. I had a good Hungarian kid has better things to eat, maybe if you put a lot of paprika on the mercury, I don't know, but anyway, you see, and one of the things that you see about it right away when you play with that mercury is that it looks like a perfect combination of a liquid and a solid. It runs, but then it divides into little solid globules which recombine again. It's a real magical substance. And so it is, let's say, the symbolic representative of what the alchemists call the medium of the conjunction. This is what causes the conjunction to happen. Now, it's named Mercury for a number, there's a lot of astrological symbolism goes into alchemy also. Why? Because astrology was a terribly important thing at that time, everybody knew about the planets. Everybody knew about the signs of the zodiac. You didn't have to look them up in the Los Angeles Times, in the astrological column, because it was a very, very common way to understand the heavens and understand the influence and the relationship of the heavens to humans. Very, very common. But Mercury, the planet Mercury, of course, is named after the god, the Roman god Mercurius, who in turn is the Roman form of Hermes, who in turn is related to the Egyptian Thoth. I will stop at that point. But all of these deific figures have one thing in common, is that they have the capacity to bring together, to unite. Therefore, Mercury is the medium of the conjunction. This is often envisioned now as a triangle. So the two now becomes a triangle. There is the salt, sulfur, or if you want to call them the queen and the king, and then above them, as an upward pointing triangle, like a fire triangle, there is Mercurius, the Mercury. And this Mercury influences them, aids them so that they can reunite once again, so that the union can be accomplished. But it's a long, drawn-out process. On other occasion, I think we did an alchemical series of talks on the Rosarium Philosophorum, the Rosary of the Philosophers, which consists of 10 images, and which Carl Jung utilized in one of his books. And these are sort of the 10 sub-phases in addition to the 3 great ones. So first, in the Nigredo, in the black phase, which we mentioned, in the initial part of the interaction, we have yet a whole bunch of sub-phases, and I'll mention the Latin names and then translate them quickly. First, solutio, solution. That is when the solids are dissolved, when the square is broken up. Elementarum separatio is the second one, the separation of the elements, which ultimately leads to the separation of the two main protagonists, antagonists there, the king and the queen. Then they are beginning to try to have fun, let us say, as men and women often will do if nobody prevents them, and that is conjunctio. They are beginning to join together, they embrace. However, that embrace eventually really leads to a fusion between the two. They have really united, much more so than any sexual act unites anybody. But you know what? It didn't really work all that well, seemingly, because this newly fused unity of the two is dead. Mortificatio, death. Following up on mortificatio, as it often is with human bodies, putrefactio, putrefaction. So it begins to dissolve. Oh well. Now the good alchemist, of course, knows that these are phases of the process, and that the process has to go through these. There is no need to get excited. There is no need to get depressed. There is definitely no need to abandon the project, but keep on with the fire, and it will work. And so now, at this point of the putrefaction and coagulation, these are all the ones that are mentioned, are all phases of the Nigredo. They are all within the first great division. But now things begin to change. Something ascends from the dying and putrefying body. Something ascends, the ascent of the soul. This is referred to as sublimatio, becoming more sublime. The soul rises up. And with that we have entered now what is called the white phase, or albedo, which really means that the darkness in the retort is now receding, more and more light is coming in, and the black is changing into sort of gray and white. So the light is coming. And upon this rising, there follows a washing, ablutio, of the seeming dead corpse, after that washing has occurred, boom, life, soul comes back into it, animatio. And with that, then the white phase is completed. And what happens after that? Now, the last step is ready to be taken. After the black phase, after the white phase, now a big light, sort of like the orange and red light of the molten metal in the blacksmith shop, the red phase. Sometimes in some very early alchemical treatises there is a yellow phase, citrinitas as well, which is between the white and the red, but it's really a sort of early phase of the red. And in that red phase, in sort of the red heat of the alchemical union, the true and abiding union of the two opposites occurs now, and the result of that is a miracle. The philosopher's stone, the elixir of life, the alchemical process thus has come to its conclusion. So those are the phases, those are the process. Black phase, white phase, red phase. And usually the three are the ones that are mentioned. Now, you're probably beginning to wonder by now as to, well, okay, so when in the heck did they start producing their gold? You know, because this is what is in everybody's mind, that alchemy is about the making of gold. And of course that's not entirely untrue, because the alchemical symbolism states that when the final result of the alchemical process of transformation has been achieved, when the stone of the philosophers is there, this mysterious object, it's not always represented as a stone. In the rosary of the philosophers, it is represented as an androgynous, miraculous being, the great empress, as she is called, because the empress is higher than the king and the queen in the medieval order. So there are various symbols for it. But, well, let's say the object of the activity, when that comes to pass, this is such a miraculous result that with it and with its presence anything is possible. Okay? And if anything is possible, well, then base metals like lead and things like that can be changed into gold. And that's part of the alchemical story. So the alchemists, who were for the most part pretty smart people, and who had a somewhat similar attitude to, let's say, modern academics in our universities, they would go up to a king or a queen or a prince or a duke or a bishop or a pope, and they would say, if you subsidize us, see, if you build an alchemical laboratory for us, and the retort and everything, or you finance all of that, and you'll keep us in money until we can really do this, and we can't promise you how soon that will be. If you do all that for us, when we finally get it done, we will be able to change lead and iron and things like that into gold for you. But you have to subsidize us first. So this is kind of like nowadays a government grant. You know, you go to the government and say, look, if you give us money, eventually we'll produce something that you can use. And the government usually says no, because our governments or any governments are in the business of taking money from people, not giving it to them. And so to reverse that process is very, very difficult. In any event, there is the issue of making gold. There are stories, there are reports and legends that some alchemists did produce gold, and that then they gave it to their patrons. It's difficult to tell. Also difficult to tell what fraud might be involved, all kinds of things. Some people claim that with certain modern processes even, that gold can be made, but that it's so much trouble, takes so long, and so little gold is produced that it's really not worth it, you know. So you might as well, I don't know, hold up the jeweler store and avail yourself of your gold needs in that fashion. But obviously we are dealing here with a symbol system. Obviously we are dealing with a symbol system. And the symbol system declares that once that transformation has really occurred, really proceeded, then the transformed person, being, whatever you want to call it, becomes a miraculous creature. And there is no telling what it will do. There are all kinds of magical powers that are outlined in some of the alchemical books about what the Philosopher's Stone does. It heals the sick. It makes the sad happy. It, does everything under the sun. It's a miraculous object. But I think the symbolism indicates that when the transformation is complete, then really the sky is the limit, in a sense, as to what you can do. And that not just physical things, but otherwise, because you have become now you have become an all-powerful being. You say, arrogance, inflation, and all of that. But you know what? What are the qualities usually attributed to God? All-powerful, right? Omnipotent. Deus Pater Omnipotens in Latin, right? Now, if you have become divine, if you have become one with the universal deity, then that means that you also are all-powerful now. Not as an ego, not as that's a total misapplication of the situation. If I pray right, I decree right, things like that, then I'll be able to heal, I'll be able to make a lot of money out of that. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but this is certainly not about that. But it means that if you have really transformed, then perhaps experiences, situations, ideas that previously have been very common, very dull, very uninteresting. What could be more dull than a piece of lead? Just kind of look at it. I mean, it's heavy, it's lumpy, it's gray. There's nothing very nice about it. But if you can transform the lead all of a sudden into shining gold, so maybe then the transformed soul can apply this miraculous principle to all kinds of life experiences. And things that previously seemed very, very dull and very, very bad, all of a sudden are wonderful. Life becomes wonderful. Life becomes a miracle. Wherever you look, there is shining gold and no longer the old things. What has changed? You have changed. The Philosopher's Stone has changed in you. This is, of course, the personal application. Now, a lot of other things could be said because the alchemical principle has been applied in various ways. And I just want to indicate at this point, because we are coming toward the end of our time, that the important thing really to all the great alchemists, and I can see, and we will talk about them, was the principle of alchemy. They felt that there was a principle here, there was a process described here that is extremely, extremely important and tremendously valuable. Not a gold. That's a flapdoodle. That's a byproduct. It's just like we have all kinds of spin-off from the space shot, going to the moon or things like that. It's nice to have the spin-offs, but the important thing was getting there to the moon, getting to the moon for heaven's sakes, and that's the way they looked at these, that there is a principle here of substantial change which has tremendous implications. So with all my great respect for Carl Jung and for instance, the psychological application of the alchemical principle, which I think is very, very fine and very, very important, we need to keep in mind that the old alchemists saw, in addition to the transformation of the individual alchemist himself, which they saw, one of the very famous alchemists, I think it was Michael Meyer, or another one who said, "Be ye therefore living philosopher's stones," indicating that the alchemist himself has to change and has become the great transformer. But there are other aspects of it. For instance, the word is never mentioned, but it's, I think, very, very plain, for instance, to someone who reads the Manichaean scriptures, beautiful poetic things, the writings of the great Gnostic faith of the prophet Mani in Persia, that Mani looked upon the entire world, the entire earth upon which we live, as a substance which should be subjected to an alchemical process. And that the Manichaean perfecti, the Manichaean wise men, the ones in the white robes, would, by way of their meditations and by way of their prayers and their rituals, extract the light from the world, bring it out, the sparks of light that are lost there. It's very much like a Kabbalistic concept, of course, of the sparks that are held by the Clifford, and bring these out by way of an alchemical process, and then they could go on the ships of light above. So that really this world is an alchemical retort. That's how I look upon a lot of Mani's teachings, for instance. And the wise, the knowers, have to be the alchemists who work with this retort, bring the light out of it. We will see later on St. Thomas Aquinas, really very different kind of a man than the prophet Mani, in his Aurora Consurgens, is bringing out the captured wisdom, Sophia, who is captured by the earth in matter, and that the work of the alchemist is to liberate this mysterious, glorious being from the shackles of material confinement, so that she could rise to the heavens once again. So you can see that the application of the alchemical principle within various mythic contexts, a Christian Sophianic concept in the case of Aquinas, a sort of quasi-Kabbalistic concept in the case of Mani, and all along the transformation of the alchemist himself, because it's quite evident that if you look at all the alchemical scriptures, that if the alchemist himself does not transform, then obviously he doesn't have the power to transform or change anything else. So it's a very, very important issue. And so we have here a very mysterious, very, very ancient way, sort of the secret path of change, which was a secret because people's consciousness was not able to deal with it, and that's the only reason why things are secret. Real secrets are not secret because somebody locked them up in the trunk somewhere, but they are secrets because we are not bright enough to recognize them and see them, They stare us into the face, but we are looking at something else. And so this was the secret way of change, the secret way of changing ourselves, the secret way of changing life, the secret way actually of changing the universe and liberating various forces and glorious potentialities and beings in the universe. And then, at the very end, it says, first a square, then a circle, then a triangle, and then a circle again, the final circle, wholeness. No longer the unconscious, seething, bubbling, dark, terrifying wholeness of the Nigredo of the black face, but the ultimate wholeness, the ultimate circle, where everything has become one, which is, according to many, many traditions, really the objective of this life, the objective of ourselves as human beings, and the great work, which is what the alchemists called their process of transformation, magnum opus, the great work. The great work that we maybe unknowingly, maybe sometimes reluctantly, maybe sometimes even obstreperously, but still we have come here to do that great work. If we become aware, we become conscious of these principles, then perhaps we might even accomplish that great work. We might actually do it. Let's hope so. Thank you very much.
Copyright MMB III by BC Recordings. Catalog number 301500. For more information about available lecture titles and for many other resources, visit gnosis.org. That's gnosis.org.
Hello, hello, hello. It's almost over. Sorry.
Oh, Jesus. Jesus. The phone almost fucking flew out of my hand.
Hey, we're working here.
Scared the crap out of me. Oh, fuck. I was like deep in thought, man. Holy crap.
I try, but I get sidetracked every 5 minutes. I forgot I was streaming. And I got this feed in the other ear. I forgot I was streaming. I was just sitting there looking at the chat, forgot all about the other computer, and thinking about what I was gonna say. Backspace. Type it again. Backspace. Never mind. So you erased the whole thing.
I don't know. It's still running to me.
Yeah, it's just now finishing out.
Background of what I'm doing.
It's getting too much tonight. I want to jump into call-in room.
Oh, Jesus, I need to turn down. I think you're in both.
I'm all over the place. Oh, where are you at? Are you?
On my phone.
Oh, you have the phone on too?
That's the background of the.
Yeah, I'm just in the call.
That's on the line. I forgot I was that just now. Are you skimming?
All two of us.
All two of us.
I think I got it set up to 100 people, so jump on in. Hey, Damien. You're a little late, buddy. Kid, how's it going, Damien?
Yeah, you should put the link for video in the description so that the ones who have, or maybe they.
I'm just searching for that right now. It's been a while to do its thing over here. But yeah, I'll throw that link up. What's new or anything? I've done that video a couple times now, so I think I picked up something. Hopefully.
Actually, I was and that got me pretty distracted. I went sniffing around at the came up with that link. And then I got back to the other stuff and I started to up because I forgot a few things. Forgot the recipe for the bread.
Oh yeah, I posted
that.
I posted that in your channel.
Okay, well, here I'm gonna put it up in the chat.
I have that other link on for you right here.
Okay.
One in your head.
It's the one that came in off of the buggy scene.
Yeah.
Which was highly weird. Well, the gesture is like, oh, hang on, please. Oh, I need. Well,
I'm gonna do. Hey, post and copy. You do?
No,
okay.
I don't know.
What do you can't? You're full of it. What do you mean? The video's not. This one's just for eye candy. We should have the other one.
Well, let's talk about, I say let's out. Hey, can you put me up there? No,
1 second. I'm still posting here. 2 seconds.
Alright. Oh, Duty has. Wait a minute, hold up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Stop
well,
this.
Hey, right on. Let me mute mine so you can talk.
Mute it. You don't have to mute anything. He's got to unmute.
Yeah, I know, but it feeds better. If I can do it. So let me. Oh, I hit the wrong one.
Hello.
Hi there, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, I'm doing my.
It has been a day, hasn't
No,
it?
that's not. Oh yeah.
It has. It has. I'm over here doing this ketchup stuff, and the mustard is on the floor.
The mustard is on the floor.
I'm doing
The
ketchup.
cheese is
I'm
all
doing
in the
I'm
oven.
doing ketchup right now.
So I was watching that video you were showing, and then he started talking about transformation, and then my mind went somewhere else. So I didn't
Oh,
really
cool.
catch a whole lot of it.
Well, it's there to watch again.
Hopefully this gets smart.
Watch again. Only that video doesn't come with eye candy. It doesn't come with me scrolling in the background.
With the beard.
What?
Oh, you know.
There's eye candy on there. There's lots of eye candy on there, man. You was scrolling right through Discord and all the comments and stuff. There was a lot said there. A lot said.
Yeah.
And I say first of all, I want to know if anyone has any dreams about a spider-looking creature, alien creature, and it has like this coating of slime all over it. And I'm wanting those dreams. I want you to record if you can, if you feel comfortable, even write it out or something to get it out there, because this stuff is important. This is important because we can piece together what we're seeing. And our connection together is with this, I think, because a lot of us are seeing this. And I don't want to name names because I don't want to out anybody, but I've talked to a few people already who have, and then we came across this video and it opened up this complete process of elimination, and not even elimination. It was more like a road, like a bumpy ride of aspects to what we were looking at. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. You explain it, Tim.
Well, we just kind of jumped from one clue to the next, and our clues started to coordinate each other or confirm each other. And Nanya was discussing to me about her dream and some other dreams, and how I got it to the point where I have a lot of visions, a lot of dreams, but I never actually had any dreams of spiders. So I was asking her, what do you mean by spiders? I mean, right? So we got into that. And I said, well, I've had these visions of what I call species 8472, or I started out with the numbers 8472. And I run across this sci-fi species group of 8472 that has multiple legs and gooey substance and all this stuff. You know, how they hide reality within the fiction, or within the, you know, within the storylines of some of the movies and
Holly
shows.
weird.
So it was just funny because I had come across this and I had it posted 7 months ago, and then we were just talking about it today, kind of coordinating some stuff. It's kind of like a combination between aliens, this other species I'm talking about, which is from the
If I could
newest.
just jump in there real quick, Tim.
Yeah.
And NonYa, when you say gooey little spiders, do they get inside you, like inside your skin
No,
or in
they're
your
not
body?
little. No, these aren't little. These are huge.
Okay.
Okay, and the thing of it is that they're always in motion because they're very quick. And I only get like a glimpse, but then I sense this goo, like a protective barrier.
I'm gonna see if I can
And
jump pages here.
and I think all we were doing was trying to hide from them. And but this goo, I don't know, it's like it's like a slime that suctions, is what I'm getting whenever I look at it and I fill
Suction
it
slime.
out. Yeah, and it's like a protective barrier.
I feel
No,
like I
it's not a
can.
black goo. It's a clear goo. And it could be black. It could have black tint to it. I don't know. You know, it's kind of hard to tell whenever you're looking at something that's going very quick and you're trying to get a sense of what it is. The
Yeah.
colors of it you know, it's very hard to read for me, I think. And so I might be thinking of it as clear, like my spit that day that I tried to spit it out that I was
Yeah.
talking about. Whenever I first started out in experiencing this wake up and spitting out the negative of the attachments of my life.
I was looking up that
That's
species.
so I think maybe I'm associating it with that.
Here's what I was thinking, and it's kind of like a cross between
But then those little nanobots,
like
they come into
aliens,
play, and
predator,
they are smaller, and
the
that's how they
right.
found the bread.
Oh yes, the nanobots on what look, you thought it was bread, I thought it was blood cells, but either way,
It is blood cells, though. It is. That's the thing.
but it's the bread.
Whenever you're dealing with the Mandela effect, it's always in double. Like it's always like this, that, or the other.
Oh, I gotta
But
remove
it
my
always comes
face.
out about the same. I don't know. It's weird the way it is. It's always weird dealing with the Mandela.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up that 8472 one of the images, and then there's also, you got the, you know, the hot. These things are always squirting out pods, like these egg pods, you know, in this gooey substance, like this biological preservative sac, I guess. I don't know. My dream involves more like a pig farm factory where there's a lot of organ harvesting going on, and they're deep freezing this crap, and they're shoving it in these pig carcasses and shipping them off to China. You know,
There's China again. There's
organs,
China again.
organs, aborted fetuses, all that kind of stuff that's illegal to transport across country lines and
You know
stuff.
something, Timothy?
Yeah.
I picked up that China video earlier and threw it over there and beyond the visible. I picked that as the video to go over there and bring to their group. So it's kind of weird that you talk about China and I picked it up today.
It goes back around here on this next cycle because everything's reversed. Peace, according to the Hopis, peace is supposed to go from west to east. The cycle is supposed to go counterclockwise. Everything's mirrored here, so everything goes clockwise. So right now, all the power goes from east to west. That's why everything's disturbed and out of balance. So it has to reverse back around counterclockwise. We have to mirror everything in our reality. Because that's how you hide the truth within
But what
it.
I
You just
described to
mirror it.
you was the spider beings, because Crystal's talking about the spider beings over here.
I'm pulling them up.
She's talking about eating them, and I find that very interesting. Because remember what I told you about going around and eating them? Eating these negative beings that are clouding up your computer. That it was getting to be too much. It just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And there were many of them. You know, it wasn't just one or two. I mean,
This is what I was seeing was
and
this.
Outside.
This is what I was seeing was something like this, the species 8472, right? But then there was also, where was that one photo? There was
That's
also
the one that looks like it, but it has more legs to it.
Yeah, no, it's got three legs here. It's got three tripods.
It's very common to what I'm seeing in the blurry vision, like if
But it
something's going very fast.
It comes back to this image here. That I had a vision of, that I drew out. Remember that? The ninth dimensional vision? Probably not. It was a little while back.
I don't know.
I'm going to pull it up.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah, you do. We were discussing if it was a mantis or if it was the one with the cold breath coming out of the mouth. I'm going to show you. No one else knows anyway. Hopefully we're not. Spiders don't like vibration or loud music, says Crystal Keith.
So these giant spiders, do they exert any type of like control or pull or push on your actions or energy?
Well, that's the thing, is that I don't know that, and that's where this girl came in with her vision, with the blue eyes. And actually, that came out whenever the shooting happened, and that video came out, and Tim was looking for a global witness. You know,
that's the work, T-Light.
And then this came out in that, and that's the reason why we just came to be. I mean, we were like swooping through information, and I mean, it just we kept following, you know, like where it was trying to bring both of us. Like Tim was going in a different direction, and I was going in another direction, but we'd meet right exactly at the same spot.
I was at the top of Mount Olympus, and she was down there making corn.
Wow.
Indian corn.
Yeah.
Yep,
she was in the foods, and I was in the clouds.
You know, not to change the subject, you guys were talking about spiders, and I'm going through my notes over here trying to find, because it's really like I feel what you're saying, but I think I saw it differently. And so actually I just got a little distracted on what you guys were talking about. I'm kind of
here too.
Something, the energy.
Well, I would love it if people would record, you know, this, that way we can have it and compare it, like put it in a compiling system and kind of like draw out a picture of this, a film. That way we can see what the heck is going on in this picture that we're all having. And maybe that will help us. I don't know. It might inhibit us. Maybe it's a squirrel. I don't know.
Oh, here it is.
I don't know. What do you think, Tim? What do you think, Duty Head? Is this a squirrel? Or is this for real? I mean,
I don't know.
Spider's real. I'll give you that one. But before I say anything, I really need to probably think about it for a little while so that I can explain it, what I've seen, you know, correctly. The spider is, I would say it's something that's scary, but it's, for some reason, it's not something that I'm afraid of. So that's pretty much all I could say right now without going.
Oh my God. I was sound asleep, and then the sexy voice came on and woke me straight up. Who is in the calling room? Eli.
Go ahead, Nonya. Go ahead.
That was T-Light. That was T-Light. That was T-Light.
Yeah.
She just came in comments.
I saw that.
She's like, oh, snap.
I'm expecting you to say something right now.
I don't know what. I don't know.
Oh, you called me from time to time. Yeah. I think it started with should. Sugar the Stargazer.
Oh, it was.
Soul Guru.
So, yeah, that's even better. Oh, dude.
What do you mean better? That's what it was.
Dude. Was this Soul Guru?
Yeah.
I think I seen your video or something, because you had a video up there of the Love Guru off of that movie.
Yeah,
And
that
then
was
I got
the Love Guru. The one from
I couldn't, yeah, because I couldn't believe we liked the same
that
part
movie.
of that movie. That was fucking hilarious. Oh, oops.
Here's that thing I was looking at, which this thing down here I thought was a tail, maybe it's a third leg, but it's in a robe, and its arms are under the robe, its other arms over here. But this is what I had seen, and I drew the picture. I mean, fairly quickly, but so I don't know if that jogs anybody's memory or gives anybody any.
That does look like that thing.
Okay.
That does look like that.
I got it, Nanya. Tim, can you Google spiders represent control?
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll find the same thing that I came up with, or I can drop a link.
No, okay. Going up.
You can't see it.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's what we need. Is like these things.
But I'm just gonna go ahead and read it real quick.
Spiders represent control.
Spiders represent control, and then the first thing that popped up on Google, it says, "What do spiders symbolize?" In Hindu, spider sitting in its web until its prey is entangled represents being caught in the illusion of the physical world. I just want to stop right there. That was the first thing that popped up, and that's exactly what I'm kind of thinking. This spider represents something, but it's not. It's not something to be feared. I mean, but it can look scary when you first see it. And see, like, let me tell you something that happened to me the first time that I just kind of sort of bounced out of my body for a second. There was a puppet master, so to speak, and there was just like a regular old marionette puppet. You know what I mean? Am I using the correct word with all the strings attached?
Yeah,
to
marionette.
To the arms and everything. Yeah, and it just like this energy just grabbed me and shook me right back into my body, and it was like a marionette. Boom. A spider. Yeah, it actually kind of looked like a spider, but it wasn't. It was spider shape. It wasn't like an actual spider, if that makes sense.
Well, if you look at this thing's head that's on the screen right now, underneath the spider represent right there, there's a head on there, and it looks like it could be a leg if it was going fast. And then you got a back leg going on, so it does look kind of like a spider. And a daddy long leg is the feeling I got whenever I was looking at this thing, because the legs were longer. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the chemical balance or anything. I think that ought to be looked at, chemical balance, and see what that's, I don't know, maybe it's the eggs.
Well,
you look at, since you're looking at the eggs. But that's exactly the thing that we were looking for, G-Head, is things like that, man. That's exactly the way we found all this information right there, is the way you just did. Like on Google, it was like you were drawn to look this up, and this is what you found, and it has to do with Hindu and India. I mean, that's kind of important to this right here. Indian bread, flatbread that I found. It was all in India.
There, I just did a copy of paste of what I found.
Awesome.
And let me just write in the YouTube chat room, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wait. In Russia. Okay, let me just finish up. I didn't catch all of it, so I'm just gonna attach. There we go.
I'd say get your thoughts together about your dreams and write them out, and then record them. Maybe even that way it's easier for somebody to imagine. Yeah, but sometimes writing,
I had to go get a
mail it out.
Yeah, because I just can't explain.
Sometimes
the things that I see, it's fifth dimension. There's too many layers. I can't throw it all in.
No, yeah, no, you can't.
Or maybe a book, but who's gonna sit there and read the book? You know what I mean? So I got a sketchbook. You would?
think that
Okay.
books are very important. I think books are so important because it has your DNA all over it, the
Indeed.
thoughts, and
Indeed. DNA.
share that. It's
That's
kind
another
of like
key.
what I was talking about with this Tibetan book, and all these Tibetan books that I have, the Sutra book. That Sutra book is gonna come into play soon. I know it is, but
Did you see the
it's
picture
that
I posted
feeling.
on Discord
Yeah, I saw that.
Came from
with the DNA strand?
Yeah, the figure 8, the heart in the middle. That's what I see.
There's a lot in there that
You got 8 lines representing, in your strand. I mean, there's 2 out of, but you know where they're at. I mean, I'm going down to it here. Yeah, right here. It's upside down, but you guys get the idea.
my bad. I'm not tech
Um,
anything. Oh,
no, I
tamales.
thought it was interesting.
Tamales.
I thought it was an interesting picture. Yeah, while it's still DNA, I got that, and you had some other stuff going on here that, maybe you can.
This is what I'm trying to
This screen's got
fathom.
to catch up, so I do have your picture up on the screen
Oh, okay.
currently.
Yeah.
You guys are just behind.
well, the spiders came into play in my findings too. Like looking it up like this, like the whole I don't know.
Actually, your picture is the way you posted your picture. Is probably actually correct because everything's upside down anyway. So this is probably the way we want to read it to begin with. So this is probably something that your guides put this way for a reason. So the frequency above the DNA strand with the duty below, I don't know. The spirals, no, the spiral binder's at the bottom. So.
Oh, it's up now. Cops are crooked, Crystal.
But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines within, well, on each strand or each hemisphere. So that'd be 4 and 4. That'd be 8. It typically looks like a figure 8, an hourglass. The times are running out, and then the center would be your connection point. That would be your heart. Your heart is your connection. That's where the 2 lines converge into 1, and then they come back out. So you go from one reality, you converge, and then exit into another reality. You can go left or right. You can take the 6 or the 9, so to speak, one loop in and out, or you just continue on. You take the bottom line all the way up. See, if you're following the bottom line and you get to that convergence point, you can either continue to follow that bottom line, which becomes the top, or you can take a right turn and hit that other bottom line. And I think we're just doing bottom lines right now. We're just going up, hitting that convergence point, and then they're dropping us back down again. So we need to jump through that barrier and come across the top, I believe. I'm thinking. This image keeps coming up to me, too. Not so elegantly, but.
I don't know if you can read it upside down, but what they're saying in the little speech bubbles, it's I'll just spell it. It's DA space FUQ. So
the fuck, yeah.
They're confused. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they're on the bottom. They're on the bottom side of that loop. I was saying, yeah. So they're in confusion. What riding this bottom wave? We come up to the ascension period. Each cycle, which I say is 27,000 years. And then they're doing something. They're causing this technology thing that we got going on right now, where they screw with the frequency. So instead of us ascending up to the higher line, we're dropping back down. We go up a little bit and then we drop back down. And it gets worse, and it comes back up. It gets better again, because if you continue these out off the screen, I think that's why the DNA is set up that way, as above. Everything's cycling.
And Crystal Keys, that's exactly what I was fixing to, or what I'm trying to get at, is the whole infinity and the process behind it. This is just, if it was a fractal, this would be a very small portion of something. It's hard to explain.
Isn't this like the PSYOP thing that you posted on Discord? Like,
Oh,
it's a PSYOP game that they play to keep
yeah, I
you
wasn't the
in
one who
the loop.
posted that, Nanya. That was.
No, I'm talking about Timothy.
Oh, yeah. The one earlier.
I'm gonna go fetch that. Yeah, I'm gonna go fetch that right now.
All right, please do refresh my memory. I post a lot of stuff. Yeah, but that's what I saw. I saw a lot of symbolism there without you even realizing. All right.
It's in chat right now.
Yeah, and you know what? I knocked that out as we were watching the video. That's just as it came to me, kind of a thing. I don't know. I don't want to.
It's in chat where?
It's up a little bit.
Oh.
What happened to T-Light? She go back to bed?
She was laying there dozing in and out.
Oh wait, there she is.
Insanity.
I was just thinking about her and it popped up.
Yeah, she's insanity. Oh, the insanity.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, you're talking that Wikipedia link I did earlier.
I think so.
This thing.
It's the psychology. It's just a reminder of, kind of the same concept of the psyop that's going on to keep us in this loop, like the 8.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. It's pulling up now.
Instead of out and out and about, instead of out and about, darn it, where we're supposed to be, in the darkness, hidden from this negative. Can't wait to go home. It's been a long time.
Back to where we started.
Wow.
Hopefully we learned something out of this experiment.
No, I don't want to donate. I have not. You donate to me, please. I can't donate to you. Wikipedia wants me to donate.
Since when do they take handouts?
Apparently now.
Since they got censored by the what was it? Oh Lord. Net neutrality.
Net neutrality, Europe. Yeah, psychological operations are to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. The purpose of the United States psychological operations is to induce or reinforce behavioral favorability to U.S. objectives. They are an important part of the range of diplomatic, informational, military, and economic activities available to the U.S. They can be utilized during both peacetime and conflict. There are 3 main types: strategic, operational, and tactical. Strategic include informational activities conducted by the U.S. Gov outside the military arena, though many utilize Department of Defense, DoD operational PSYOPs during peacetime defined operational area to promote the effectiveness of the Joint Force Commanders. Tactical commander across the range of military operations support the tactical mission against opposing forces. So a PSYOP can encourage popular discontent. Go ahead.
I was just saying, masonry written all over it to me.
No, that's how it's done. I mean, really, it's what do you call that? You call that setting up the.
This is the way
it's manipulation.
Yeah, definitely.
So they manipulate the way, and that's how it's been working for many years. That's where you get into the whole. That's where you get into the whole mud flood. The whole mud flood. The whole psychology of the mud flood. You remember early 1900s, the turn of the what is that? Yeah. Okay. The whole. You remember all the children? We put in child labor laws because all these children were working in factories and all this crap, and a lot of them were orphans and they had no homes and no parents and no families. And what they did was they were collecting all these children from all over the world and they were bringing them to the major cities. which already seem to be developed. Well, there seems to be this mud flood that happened, roughly 200-300 years ago, and it's believed that these children were the leftovers after the parents were all either killed in the floods or whatever happened, and so that's how they restructured society from that point, is what this theory is saying. And
that all the children were
they
separated from their
from their
parents, and
and the parents were done off with or whatever, and so they, in order to change history and change the memories of everything, they just dealt with the children. And then once that first, second generation of children grew up, they had no memories of their culture or their past history.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they ripped it away.
Just like they did with all the slaves from, different racial groups were slaves.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Native Americans.
Slavics were, that's where the name slave come from, was from the Slavics.
I wish my memory was a lot better, but that sounds awfully familiar to something that I had heard. I want to say it was Native American, about a tribe of people that were captured and all the parents were killed, and then the children were isolated for 2 generations, I think it was, until they were old, and then they had children or something to that point. And then from there, they removed themselves from that isolation and continued onward to do bad things. I mean, yeah. So that's
it's interesting.
That's
There's
what they're talking about.
actually.
That's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about, Timothy, with that one video with the Native Americans that we found whenever we were looking into the global witness. And I said, there's no way that the Onondaga Nation and all these nations would tolerate this, and that the elders would, quite be climbing all over it. And then that couple came in that you found, and they were talking about that information about how the generations have changed in the nations. The elders had died.
Yeah, so all these huge cities were developed and built, but there's never, in the old pictures, there was never the quantity of people in those large cities, like in Russia, St. Petersburg, and
Yeah.
Italy and France and Rome and all that, compared with, I mean, the cities were massive, but there was never any people in the streets when they took these pictures. It's not like they had everyone just stand off to the side. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a moment. I'll go back to the other page.
But see, what I'm saying is that those children that Judy might be talking about might have gotten into the nations as elders because they are Native American. They can still be Native American and be in the clique of things. And maybe that's what the elders are fighting against inside these other elders. They have corruption too.
Yeah, there's some people really looking into this. Like, it didn't happen that long ago. Let me see what this says here. So yeah, wow, I got like that. Got that like squeezing chest pressure thing going on. Yeah, someone's twisted my heart. It hurts. Please let go. What is it? Alright, where's it at? Well, this isn't going to help me at all. So, yeah, I mean, because you know how it just seems like things really changed right around, well, it seems like everything changed before our generations. We look at, even when you look at the style of dress that everyone was accustomed to versus nowadays, I mean, they were really more with it as far as clothing-wise. There was that period in the 1800s where everything is actually, it seems like it might have been better than what it is right at the moment. Let's see what this video is here. Did I lose everybody?
No, I'm still
I'm not here.
This isn't the one, but I want to see his video or his
When it comes to
pictures
the
here.
for us, it's all about time spent together.
That's right. It's about the time you spend together, not the name of the holiday. So spend every day together. That's from a commercial that I was just listening to. That's why it's so slow. I should just take it and post it over on Discord. Then I can see you guys light up. I know you are. The library I need to grab has info about this. Hang on, there's a book in my library I need to grab that has info about the mud flood. Oh, interesting, Crystal. Let me go to the one that I like.
My entire life is in a notebook.
Where is the heart in the human body? It's in the center of the chest. It used to be what they said off to the left.
Yeah,
but mine, something's there. They're definitely, yeah. My heart's moving around.
We put our hands, we put our right hand over the left side of our chest when we do the Pledge of Allegiance. We were always told that that's where the heart is.
Yeah, but when they when they tell you to shoot for center mass, what are you shooting for?
You're shooting for the heart.
So why the disconnect? Because maybe the heart's always been in the center.
Well, you're hitting the left side of the heart, though. Whenever hitting the center of the chest, it was always the edge was always touching the center of the chest, but it was over to the left.
Well, you know, the heart is a worm. The heart looks like a worm. The heart unrolls into the shape of a worm.
Interesting.
That's why they always say the worm.
And I was always saying that, I always believed too in what my hubby was saying about the whole, we're all just living organisms trying to survive.
Yeah, the heart's the first thing to develop, which is why I always say it's where the soul was originally encased. Alright, here's that video. Paste.
I'm trying to Google the heart is a worm, and I keep coming up with heartworms.
Yeah, I know. If you unroll in a medical examination, if you unroll the heart's actually rolled up. It's got connective tissues that keep it in that shape. But if you unroll it, it rolls out like a bounty tube, like a paper towel tube, but flat. They call it the worm. I can pull it up.
I'm gonna keep that in mind. I'm gonna keep looking for that. That's really interesting. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, here. For sure. Let me close this YouTube because it really slows everything up.
The heart is just a really interesting topic on its own, isn't it?
It's the what do you call that? Unrolled heart. Let me try that.
I wonder if who had the book? Is it Catholicism?
Was it Crystal?
Yeah, Crystal had a book, but something about it.
I just came across the book Catholicism. $27.99. Join. That little banner to come up. I have it X'd out of.
Huh. I found a
It was
churro
first
in the
choice.
shape of a heart.
I put heart, Eddie, Faith, I guess, or something like that.
We're all clump of organized cells with heartworms.
Yeah, I don't.
Sorry, NonYa, I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. That's what this takes, man. Is step all over each other to find the answer.
I'm just trying to remember how I found it.
Well, everybody's searching about the heart. I feel like that's a collection center, possibly collecting the ether or the Schumann resonance or whatever it is, collecting it like a giant capacitor, right? Well, not giant, but you know, a capacitor will collect energy and it'll collect it and it'll store it and it'll store it and then it'll boom, boom, it'll send it out. You see what I'm saying?
Well, it doesn't pump. It doesn't pump. The heart doesn't pump. It creates a vortex. It sucks the blood through the heart through a lack of pressure on the one end.
Do you understand what I mean when I talk about like an electrical capacitor? What they do is okay, like the coil on a car engine, right? That ignition coil.
Yeah.
It sits there and it collects energy and collects energy and collects energy, and then
the left is the intake. The left is the intake, and the right is the outtake. Because the left hand is the intake, and the right hand is the outtake on
the
a
one
beating,
expands, which creates a negative cavity, and so it pulls the blood through the one side, through the positive side, and expels it out the other side. So it's pushing. It's all through negative pressure. It doesn't actually pump. It pulls through expansion of the heart vessel into an open chamber, which draws in from having more surface area. It takes from the narrow compressed part and pushes. It pulls it in. It doesn't actually push. It's like when you suck water through a garden hose to siphon gasoline. Once you get that pump to flow, it'll just keep flowing and flowing and flowing. There's no pressure. There's no pump. It's just negative pressure that keeps pulling on the fluids.
Yeah, and I'm being told right now that this Catholicism book, okay, listen to this now. Now imagine if you're a circulator running off negative and positive energy and you're getting negative all the time. Listen to this. What is Catholicism? A 2,000-year-old living tradition, a worldview, a way of life, a way of worship, a mystery. And Catholicism, the Father questions, the Father Baron examined all these questions and more, seeking to capture the body, heart, and mind of the Catholic faith, starting from the essential foundation of Jesus Christ's incarnation, life, and teaching. Kind of sounds like they're bringing you back into the loop.
I have to look at this closer. I have to bring this focus later.
Kind of like they're using the heart. They're using the heart as a conductor of negative in order to strike you with the negative. I don't know, because I think of Jesus Christ. Like the word Jesus to me is fake now, and I truly feel that. Now the word Christ is not. Christ came way before the talking about their Jesus, To me, that's where Christ came from, was way back in the indie days. Is what I'm thinking, is what I'm getting with the visions that I'm having. It starts way, way back in India. Way back whenever we did magic. And we could make anything that we wanted out of anything that was there. The rocks, the dirt. We can make water. We can make trees. We can make whatever we wanted. And then all of a sudden out came this negative, and it was used against us to trap us. Like we were experimenting.
Oh yeah.
With emotions. We were doing alchemy. And we were studying the emotions of, and we trapped ourselves in these bodies with the negative. It was a thing that horribly went wrong. We created it. We did create it. I do agree with that. We created it.
I wonder.
And I think that's how we created it. Is that from the visions that I'm getting, But the thing of it is that all that stuff is in the past. All the elements work, it's in the past, and now we're dealing with the future, and everything is different. Everything is mirrored. So we got to figure out our generation of wake ups. That's what I'm saying.
No, I hear you. That's That's the big question. I was talking to somebody the other day. What was I saying? It was a book that I was reading. And we have to, what are they saying? They're saying that as a whole, as a global whole, um, we reached a certain part where we no longer looked at religion for all the answers. Whereas one person would live their life blindly, and then they would go to a priest, and the priest would advise them the path to heaven. And those people would abide by that because they couldn't see the path for themselves. And they're saying that what had happened is globally we started to look at religion as maybe not so good for whatever reasons, and then we started turning to science. We started looking for answers to life, but in terms that we can hold and feel something that we would call factual or with substance, right? And then from there they say we're supposed to evolve even further. Now that we're starting to get all these answers from science, we're supposed to be able to take all these different aspects of that science and put it all together, and out of that will come the great truth. Whereas before in the past you may have had maybe one or two people who could only see it, and all they could do was advise people. And now we're getting to a point where all of us can see pieces, and we're coming up to an age where we're going to put it all together.
Yeah, I think that they created this internet. Like we created this internet for ourselves. Like we're always a master manipulator, right? So we create this internet for ourselves. Negative comes along, takes it away, right?
Yes.
And uses it against us. So we're constantly using the positive against us.
Yes.
That's what I'm
If
finding
we're
out.
not, yeah, the media is this whole internet thing is just, I mean, it's dangerous for somebody who's forgive me the term, I'm going to use the term weak-minded. I don't like it, but yeah, if you just let a child on there, so to speak, man, it's going to destroy their life, because they're going to start seeing all these different things. Well, all those different things are so important. Every conversation that you have, every word that you speak has a deeper meaning to it. And so if you're just throwing all this garbage out there, and putting it up on screens, and your kids are sitting there looking at it, because they're weak-minded, it's going to wreck their world, and it's going to take time you have to really supervise them and say, oh, no, this is bad, and I'm going to have to show you why it's bad, and why this isn't an actual representation of life. That's what they need to be taught, right? And this is just, I'm totally speaking metaphorically about the whole internet thing. If we don't know how to go in and find the information for ourselves, right? This is the era that we live in right now, this whole searching for information, right? We still haven't put the pieces together. And the internet is a horrible place to find information unless you can, figure out the BS from what's actually true, Isn't
I
that
don't know.
well? And
Sometimes,
and this is how we
sometimes the
separate it.
BS.
Yeah, no, oh man, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's not all BS. How do we separate?
No,
It's the way we look
no.
at it. It's the way we use it. When we sit down and we put our attentions, and if we look for the negative, we're going to find the negative, right? And if we look for the positive and say we find something and we're going through it and we're scrolling, hey, this is kind of negative, and then we just toss it to the side. But if we're not aware that there actually is a negative and a positive energy, like most people seem to not be, they're going to go straight for whatever entertains them the most, right? Which is a lot of times you see the big flashy lights and the colorful animations and stuff like that. Usually the ones that are bullshit. I think I slept. I'm sorry, but you see what I'm saying? Like the intentions
Well,
is
you get
what makes the
infected more.
internet. Yeah,
You get
and it's your,
infected more,
yeah. You have to
and
be able to
you lose
identify.
your way. You lose your way. You're not listening, to what you're being told. So let's just say, you come across this information, you find something in that information that you can utilize as a tool to get you further in this, and then all of a sudden that turns out to be negative, but you used it and you got in somewhere else. where you need to be. It like wherever you are, the negative does lead you. It does lead you through the negative in order to get to the positive. Is what I'm saying. You have to have the negative in this element. In ways
Absolutely.
you can utilize it as a tool to get you where you need to be in this, because it is war. We have to do what we got to do to get there, whether it's create a negative for a whole or suffer and not get your message out, or not do this or not do that, or not wake up, not go forward.
Did you catch Crystal?
Oh, I'm over here
Spider
looking around.
Dream, success and money matters. Okay, who hit the lotto? It wasn't me. I don't see spiders often.
Who hit the lotto? I don't know. My left hand's been scratching lately.
Yeah, it was.
There was something I came across with spiders, little spiders. Wasn't there some?
They look like nanobots.
What was it? Dahi.
Dahi. Yeah, it's under your.
That came out of yogurt.
It's in your chat room. It's in your personal room, NonYa.
Is it?
Yeah, I put it down there, I think.
Oh.
If not there, I put it in the dump file. But I don't want to. I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can jump off this without losing you. I wasn't sure if I could do it while I was in the calling room. I guess so. It might be right here. Yeah, I got it right here. I just thought if I jump pages, I might lose the chat, the calling room. Oh no, it's right here. Dahi.
It goes to the secretion. Isn't it the secretion, the sacred? We got it off. We got the lead off of the sacred secret video, and then that led us over to
The Dahi. This Korean feminine given name. Its meaning differs based on the hanja used to write each syllable of the name. There are 7 hanja with the reading da, 24 hanja with the reading he. So Dahi.
Duh. Where you been at? We keep going through the duh moments, and it's like, hello, we should have realized this earlier. We knew it, but I don't know. It was like, knock, knock, knock.
Well, you were talking about the Christ oil here. Well, see, and then we ran into some. Now that I'm scrolling through this, we ran into some interesting things like this, the Dunwich Horror book from H.G. Lovecraft.
Yeah, they went all over the place, man. But we all wound up in the same spot within these leads.
Yeah, we did.
Like, some of them are your leads, some of them are my leads, and it was just crazy. I don't even know where we were at. I'm looking over here in the history, like, where did I find some of this stuff? I can't even keep track just by looking at it. Like, I'm trying to find the video for the Native Americans, like the whole cultural thing, so I could post it in chat, and I can't even find that.
Well, this is the other one. Okay, I just kind of. Well, because the the whippoorwill bird. How it that's right. How it symbolically means someone's gonna die. It senses the soul. Well, that's right here. So I'm not gonna even pretend like I can remember. It's commonly heard within its range, but less often seen. The eastern whippoorwill. I thought, where did I see that about the
whippoorwill?
Well, I've got it here, but I was looking for that part about the soul. I'm reading. Speed reading. No, it's not in this one. No, it's not in this one. I'm seeing all the words right now, and it's not this one. There's two here, I thought.
I know that I was just pressing links, and one of which was the link. I think it was off to the side. What is it? Was it connective tissue?
There was a connective tissue one, but no, this is the same one.
I wonder if it was linked off of this.
I might have jumped off onto a side page. I don't see anything that jumps out at me right now. That's terrible. I wish. That's the only thing when you're doing this is sometimes you see something and you just look at it for a minute. You jump off to another link.
I try to keep track of it by putting it in my Gmail drafts.
Well, I know there's something in here about the whippoorwill and the soul. This is likely related to an earlier Native American, general American folk belief that the singing of the bird is a death omen. Oh, here it is. Yeah, due to its song, the eastern whippoorwill is the topic of numerous legends. A New England legend says that the whippoorwill can sense a soul departing and can capture it as it flees. This is used as a plot in H.P. Lovecraft's story, Dunwich Horror, and likely related to earlier Native American folklore, being a death omen in which constant nighttime singing of a whippoorwill results in maddening insomnia of the protagonist, Mr. Christie, which is a person in the book. Anything else here? Anything else? But you always have the song of the whippoorwill. You have several songs about the whippoorwills. I don't know if this takes me anywhere really, but it led us to some other stuff like the feet. Remember the feet, and then that led us up to the spinal fluids.
Half tin and
tin being Jupiter, Jupiter being wisdom, and that was in this video down in here somewhere. This one here. Now, this is from Mr. Astrology, but he goes through and describing the fluids and the oils and all that within your system, but we also have to mirror this stuff too.
And in particular, the claustrum. The claustrum is sitting right there in the middle of the head, virtually.
What's it with the outer god?
There is a secretion.
The what?
Was it with the outer god on that page of fudge? I'll go back. Yoga
Yoga Sothoth.
It's called the Christ.
And you go to the right and the outer god. I remember going there.
Comes from the cerebrum and pours down the spinal cord.
Here?
It goes down the spinal cord and it reaches the sacral plexus. Right next door to the sacrum, which are the 5 second bottommost fused vertebrae bones.
Yeah, we gotta do this more.
Spinal column.
We gotta work on this a little bit more before we
portion of the spinal
cord.
Yeah. We should create a topic, and I don't know.
New too, so.
I was gonna say we could all just kind of focus and meditate on a topic for a couple of days, maybe, and then come together with some information and see what we come up with. Would you guys be interested in doing that?
I'd say that vision that girl had. If you wanted to show that, Tim, that video of the girl.
Yeah. Okay.
And let her tell her story about her dream that she had about these spider beings. And I think we all should make a video of these dreams that we have, these visions. And actually, they're not dreams because you know that they're not. You wake up differently. It's an astral projection, and you know it is. And I say we all pull together and paint this picture of what we're seeing. That way we can figure each other out because we're all creators of our own. We're all going to come up with our own conclusions that will wrap up in the same spot. We all fill in the pieces for one another. that will connect with this thought and this information, the alchemy to it. That's what I'm thinking. Where I'm thinking it's going to lead is the alchemy. Because alchemy is the creation in its own right. Like all these things put together, the symbols, the dances, everything that we do, our hand gestures as we talk, down to our choices that we make, the thoughts that we carry, even whether it's negative or positive, we're still carrying them, we're still outputting them. It's all in which way you want to output them. It's which way you're going to go on this. You're either going to wrap back around, or you're going to get wrapped around anyway, but you're going to be more knowledgeable for the next life. It's the take I'm taking off of it. The new life, the evolved. I guess, maybe, I don't know. Maybe we already evolved.
I'm still evolving. Do an ice cube.
I mean, to me, all these are possibilities of people who say things that, you know, I take into consideration because they resonate. And if they resonate, then I put them back in a file. I don't really think about them until it's drawn forward and needed to be talked about, and, you know.
I thought for sure. Maybe I put it over here.
And I think that is where we should keep it, is back in the back, because we should lay it out there. You know, like Duty had a saying, you know, lay it out there and let it be, and it will create its own. Like ourselves will create our own, because it'll be led.
I know.
Being led now.
I know we put this in here somewhere.
What, the whole spider thing?
No, the gal you were talking about.
Yeah, we did.
I thought we posted that.
I swore we did.
I thought I posted it on one of our back channels, and then.
No. It's on yours. It's in your front door.
I've been there. I thought.
It has to be in your front door.
I'll go back there. I was pretty sure
I'll look over this way for it. Make sure I don't have one.
I
could have copied it too. Nope, not there.
Oh wait, I got it here. Here we are. You want me to go ahead? I'll play the first view of it. So I'll play it right now, just so you know.
Yeah, don't get into the whole deal.
Here, but I think it was first 7 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Not even that, but.
What's up, everybody? YouTube world. I really did not want to do this video. But I wouldn't be a true warrior in Christ if I didn't do it. Let me just start off with the dream that I had a month ago. And I didn't do the dream on YouTube because I was taking a break off YouTube. But basically, I was running. And a bunch of other people were running. And I don't know exactly what we were running from. I don't know if we were running from bombs or... I don't know what we were running from, but something bad was going on and we were running for our lives. That's all I could say I remember about the dream. But what I really remember about the dream was while I was running away, this guy just tackles me out of nowhere. And
is that it?
And he showed me his face.
What's up?
And it was weird.
Ashley McCormack.
Like I was supposed to remember his face.
Yeah,
Like it was really distinctive that I'm supposed to remember what he looks like. And I just remember he had like these crystal clear, like bluish eyes. And I just remembered his face. I just remembered what he looked like.
Can you post that link somewhere at the bottom?
It was really important that I remember
easier to find.
But anyways, so he tackles
me. What I'll do is tonight before I go to bed, I'll go ahead and check that out.
While he's holding me down, he's trying to keep me held down.
Let's set a.
But I keep kind of
set a date, maybe. What about on Sunday? You guys want to get together and do this again on Sunday and see what we came up with the spider?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll give it a couple days here. What's today? It's Friday morning. Friday morning. Sunday. Probably Sunday. Gives us 2 days. It'll be later though. We'll play it tentatively for now. I mean, we can make adjustments on Discord.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. This ain't the military.
Yeah. I don't actually use a clock.
Yeah, because some people, they work, and it's kind of hard for them to make time for all this stuff because they got to live in the real world as well. So they got to keep bouncing back and forth, and it's kind of hard to keep bouncing back and forth. And maybe somebody may not have the weekend off; they may have the weekday off, like Monday or Tuesday, to where they can get to this. And maybe we should just keep it open and keep
it open, and then we'll make segments each time we're live.
Yeah. Whoever makes videos, just post them, whether it be on our channels, just post it in the community section of the channel or on Discord or what have you. Just get us the information. Write it down even. You can, write it down.
Very rarely do we spend a whole topic on one thing. We kind of jump around a lot.
Do like a hashtag like Operation Spider-Man or something like that.
I'll let you do that. Yeah. To do like, there's a dream one down there I put up. I didn't open it up yet. In the bottom of the chat room. Not the chat room, over on the side column. I think it's the bottom column. I can't see from here. Let me post this one over on the other page. And
Crystal saying. Oh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Alright, let me go over here. I'm the one that's got to jump around. Boom. Jump. Jump! Make the jump. There we go. There we go. It took us 3 days just to get this show up because of the technical difficulties.
Really?
Oh, we just kept losing sound.
Oh,
it was messing with their sound.
It was horrible.
Messing with their sound.
It was horrible. It was one thing after another. This application, that application, the phone, this. I mean, it was everything. Even down to my speaker, my sub speaker here. And that actually just happened a while ago. Right in the beginning of the video here, the live. Whenever I had said something with the frequency, what we were getting, it tampered with the subsystem here. And that's not even, it's like hooked up to the TV. So it's not even associated with the computer at all, except for the sound feeding through it. And it like flickered. It did some kind of weird stuff anyway.
Well, yeah. Sundays or Saturdays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, whenever. They're all good days. Well, Sundays I always leave, but.
Well, yeah, we'll always keep open the calling room for everyone. If they want to come discuss during the show, all you have to do is let us know you're in there. If we're not in there, I wouldn't need to see everybody's ugly mug anyway.
I'm usually around. I'm usually searching. Usually, we're researching, and then at the same time, she's commenting over on the page. But we're usually talking when we're putting this information together. So
you're talking, I'm talking, we're both talking on mute, and we're typing up.
I know
The
it.
opposite of art is not ugliness. It's indifference.
All the time.
The opposite of faith
we're like spread out in our own
heresy,
directions, and we always come back to the same freaking
and the opposite
conclusion.
of life is not
good
death.
Study.
It's indifference.
Good study.
And we all are part
and
of the same,
quote comes from Eli Wiesel.
I think.
Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Egan. It's a
pleasure
it's like
to
be with
somebody
you
was
once
telling
again.
me, somebody wise was telling me that
for the next hour.
That two flames aren't just two
Recently,
flames.
you have
There's
probably
many.
heard me talking quite
two
a bit
flames
about
are just
history,
considered
quite a bit about the lost nation of
in the aspect of the opposite. Like they carry the opposite view.
Right, the two flames. You got your male and your female. You got your male and your female aspect, which are typically derived through the opposite in the actual physical sense. So the female would be the male, and the male would be the female. They come together and join and join that circle, become that one entity, that one three-dimensional. What do you call it? Attraction. Physical. It's two fragments of the
It's
same
angelic.
soul.
It's angelic. It's
No,
angelic.
that's not. That's what I'm talking is
It's
angelic.
love.
I'm not talking that though. I'm talking even further than that. As far as the two halves come together to create the whole. Once that group pair, that set of two that comes together to make that soul connection, because they're a part of the original soul, then other soul group or other double connections meet up, and then because it takes two of us to reach to the fifth dimension. When we find our other half, we are able to open up the other chakras, the three above the father chakra, which communicates with the other soul groups, the other pairs that have made communion. They've made the connection, and so like the spider web, it works inward from there. We're on the very outer perimeter here on the 3D. So the male and the female meet together. The soul partners, the same soul, it's the same original soul source. They meet together and they join up with the other chakras, and then we communicate with each soul group from that chakra point in the fifth dimension, and then so on and so forth, onward and inward to that center point of creation, I guess, of wholeness, the middle of the pizza, the spire, where the energy
Well,
flows.
I don't want to go into too much detail, Tim, but I want to tell you about a little sketch that I made in some of my notes. All right, just while you're sitting there saying this is something that I'm looking at. That's something I had to write down. There's there's a male and a female standing side by side, and just above them there's a single flame, and then below that I've got a group of people standing in line, and just above them is a single flame. Isn't that pretty much exactly what you were saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the two come together, create one flame, and then that flame will join with the other flames, and they create a larger, more concentrated flame. If you want to use the flame for an analogy.
You want to know what I got on the next page, Tim?
Nope.
A great
pyramid.
pyramid.
Right.
Great pyramid.
So, and then you go back to your alchemy, which I'll pull up on the screen. You go back to your alchemy page, your symbols, and the four elements, earth, wind, air, fire, are the triangles. And all four triangles combined create a pyramid. And then in the center of that pyramid would be your heart source of energy.
Exactly.
So you got the four elements. The fifth element is the heart.
I just started writing down, and I was just like, man, what is this? It's coming to me. I don't know what it is. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it, and you're right there explaining it to me. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, well, that's what that means.
Love it.
But because I would look at it from, let's see, from the Book of the Dead perspective of the 27 spokes on of the images. Let me see if I can find something. So the 27 spokes are what I consider, each spoke is 1,000 years. So you've got 27,000 years per cycle, and it goes counterclockwise. And because we've been mirrored, everything we do here is clockwise. So they've got us looking at the clock backwards, and
like
that's what those. Yeah, and reverse and from right to left. Yeah.
In fact, a lot of ancient languages are like that.
That's why a lot of your dyslexic people aren't actually dyslexic. They're just their soul remembers to read from the correct position.
You know, I'll add to that, Tim. When I did sniper training, one of the first things that they taught us was, as we scan our field looking for enemies or weapons or anything abnormal, the way they trained us to scan with our eyes is from left to right. Excuse me, from right to left.
Yeah, well, because the body's set up that way. You start with the feminine because the right side is the left is the feminine hemisphere, or well, the left controls the right side, or the right side of the I'm sorry, the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, which is all your artistic and your music and all your opposites. So they've got you using your spiritual powers to discern your target versus the logic side, which is from left to right, which you're strictly looking at lines, vertical and horizontal, and the way things connect that way. They want you using your spiritual powers to zone in on your target. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes actually perfect sense. That's I mean, that's not what they told us. What they told us is because you're used to reading from left to right, so your eyes are lazy when they go in that direction. But if you go from the right to the left, then your eyes aren't used to moving in that direction, and so it'll help you pay more attention. That's what they told us, right? And I didn't care
because the
at the time,
right
but
side,
now knowing what I know now, it's obvious.
yeah, the right side is focus. It's what you do. You meditate, you focus, you tune in, you're using your telepathy, you're using your empathic powers, you're using all your connections to source. From the right hemisphere. I'm scrolling here. I don't even know what I'm looking for anymore. Lost track.
T-Light dropped me a link. I wanted to make sure I saved it. I've got to get going, but this is
that was great. No, we'll do some more.
Priceless.
I mean, because we can.
This is priceless. I mean,
we're at almost the 3.5 hour mark here. So
that's one of the reasons why my wife left me. I'm sure because I'd sit here and try to talk to her about all the same stuff that we're talking about, and I just get
stares.
Yeah, mine didn't want nothing to hear about it. She wanted nothing.
She's gone. She ran. She's done with me. I'm good riddance.
Yeah, they didn't want nothing to hear about that shit.
Yeah, we weren't. We were just creating a bunch of negative energy together, anyway. So.
Well, mine has he lacks my judge. He lacks my judgment now. So yeah.
So anyway, thank you guys very much for allowing me to come on and speak and sharing all this information. T-Light, I got some really great links from you, Cryon and Lovette. I'm definitely going to check those out soon. I need to get to bed. It's 3:30. I don't know what I have planned for tomorrow, but I know I have something going on. I'll have to check my schedule, but yeah,
hey, check this out. They probably flip the heart around too, because the right side of your heart receives oxygen for blood from your veins. The left side of your heart receives oxygen from the lungs and pumps through the arteries. So I wonder if they got that wrong too. Like flipped it, mirrored it.
Oh, remember what I said? Where's that picture? Remember what I said about the pine cone and the toroidal field that was in the basket? Now that I'm on these Egyptian hieroglyphs, maybe I could find the picture. All right, so
wait a minute.
this one here is pretty good too. If it'll pull up, where'd it go? Why won't you?
This needs some time.
All right, so here, this is your chamber. This isn't a very good picture, damn it. I thought, where's the one with the horns? Anyway, under this box, this is another version of it, but under the box is technically where the souls are kept. And they come out and they regenerate and they go through their cycle, then they get recaptured into the box. And the whole story tells about it. But this isn't the right photo. Is this? No, this isn't it. I might have to. This might be something we come back to here because there's a lot of pictures that are similar. They're not the ones I'm looking for. There's a lot of hieroglyphs. But it all comes together. I mean, this is all... It's all telling you the story of creation. All these. Anyway, I'm done with that. My eyeballs is bugging out. I have to use that as another... We'll have to do that another day.
There you go. At your front door is the thing I found on heart. It shows which way the blood pumps, and I was wrong. They didn't change it, so it's just confusing to read the way it's put. You know, whenever you're trying to hurry and read it. But if you look at how does the heart blood pump, which is right at the beginning, just about after the first paragraph, you can see that the right side is your out and the inside is your in. Which your heart always coincides with the truth, right? So they can't change that. They can, but they can't. They can move it around, or you can move it around. But I think that the Mandela are good deities. I think that they put this information out there for us to look at this point in time because he did create the internet. He knew what we were doing. He set it all up from the get-go. We always set it up from the get-go each time we circled around because we're smart beings and carry this information and we're able to figure it out for each lifetime and a time after that. Did Dee Dee have leave?
Yeah. It's just me and you.
I didn't mean to cut him off. I just wanted to say that to him. Really
no, I'm sure he's still listening. I'm sure he's still listening, but he was just getting around for bed. It's 4:30 here.
You know how it is. Get on a roll.
Oh, I know. Oh, here's that.
You want proof of what you're saying so you can store it in a safe spot so you come back on it later.
Oh, this is the wrong page. But you can check out this Max Egan video about the mud flood. When you get a minute, those of you that come in the room, he's got a good perspective on it.
I still can't find that one. I'm
gonna play this one for a minute, and then if you want, I can call you on the camera.
Okay.
This is very much what is.
All right, let me do that before I start this, because it'll cut me off otherwise anyway. I didn't hear it. Now, does that automatically cut me off from that outer store? Oh, there she is. Hang up. Are you there? Did you make the jump? Make the leap. Oh yeah, that's a good song. The war one. Where are you at? Ring, 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 ring. Wait for it to show up.
It's the tree.
It is.
That's something.
Your face. Oh my gosh. Come on, now the sound. I guess we're done. Look at that. Hey, maybe because you're loading up. It sounds pretty good all night.
Well, I guess end this.
Yeah, I plan that. Let me see if the sound comes back. Let me leave this call. That's how it works sometimes. Even with all the... Yeah, the shot. Awesome. Thank you so much, my friends, for showing up and soon enough. I don't want to give you a time frame yet because, you know, how things go. Keep that secret till the hour before, right? But soon enough, in Discord every